sure to get that notification. We will be going. Let's roll. What is going on, hockey fans? Welcome into a live edition of the Breakaway Bandits podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood here on the Sports Insanity Network. Mike Rifkin, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not solo. I'm no longer Han Solo. Although I remind myself, if you go back to my 10th grade social studies teacher, he compared me more to Chewbacca. But we'll talk about that later. But I'm joined by Nathan Moser. Moser, it's been a while. How are you?
It's been a while. Well, I mean,
Actually, to go with the you, how's it going?
How's it going?
That's the you.
We gotta bring that back. That's the I'm doing well. Weather's very nice outside. I went and got a nice Dunkin' coffee this morning. I needed to make sure that I was I listened to some sports, some hockey radio as well, just to kind of get all in tune for what we're about to do for the next quite a few hours. So it's some people call it hockey Christmas. It's we've got the 2025 NHL free agency. I'm excited. Okay. I'm excited considering that there are still some names out there. I know that there's people that feel like a lot of the top names are already off the market, which some of them are. But still a lot of interesting names out there, at least in my opinion, who are going to be switching teams today. We already have rumors. Gotta love hashtag rumors.
Love rumor season.
And we have a sign-in trade to talk about, which it's always massive when those happen in the NHL. We have the Florida Panthers continuing to be, going for the dynasty for a couple more, at least a few more years, but probably a lot for the next decade, if we're being honest. I guess first things first, I want to make sure we share. I got to make sure I share the link. Could you mind sending me the link? I just want to make sure. I don't know.
Yep, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, let's start with that signing trade.
Yeah.
And that would be Mitch Marner is no longer a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He signed an 8-year, $12 million AAV, so a total of $96 million deal with the Leafs. But those rights were traded to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Nick Waugh. So let's start off with right there. Because we knew Marner was the top of the heat when it came to free agency. And finally, the Leafs did what we've said for the last, 3 years. They finally got rid of a core 4 player.
Yeah, and it was the one that was the one that was talked about kind of the most. Was Marner, because like Nylander was never really talked about as leaving. I know there was like when he was holding out for his contract, there was like, oh, they got to get rid of Nylander. But like Nylander's been really good for them. There hasn't been talk really of Matthews leaving. I wouldn't expect that would be happening. Even though people have been critical of his playoff performances, with these playoffs and stuff like that for the Leafs this past postseason. In some of the critical games, but yeah, and then like Tavares wasn't really talked about either being moved. Marner was the guy. That was the guy that a lot of people looked to, especially because when it came to, I think the stat that was talked about the most was in games 5 through 7 for the Leafs in the postseason, he only had like 2 goals. So when like push came to shove and like it came up when you needed one of your top guys to be clutch, he was kind of invisible. And, now he goes to Vegas where he will be on the top line with Jack Eichel. This the second overall pick and the fourth overall pick in the 2015 draft. So 2 top 5 players from one of the deepest drafts in recent memory, and probably, honestly, like at least the last decade plus. You'd probably have to go back to 2003 for the next deepest draft when it comes, but that is going to be that's a big move for them. He's obviously going to be there for, the majority of that contract, if not the whole thing. I saw he's going back to 93, which is what he wore when he was in junior with the London Knights. I saw the saying online, once a night, always a night. And, with the picture of him with the London Knights and then him, cropped into a Vegas jersey. And man, that goes hard. It really does. That's if you're a Vegas fan, you're super pumped for what he's going to bring to your team. And I have a really good feeling, and Toronto fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I have a feeling that he's going to probably be a pretty good playoff performer for them. Whatever woes he was dealing with the Leafs in the postseason, something tells me he's not going to be dealing with the same thing. Whether that's, maybe he has some good chemistry with Jack. Obviously Jack only has a year left, so we'll have to actually see whether Jack stays or whether he goes. There's been talk about the Rangers, which I'm sure you'll like, or Boston. That's conversation for another podcast. But at least for this year, we'll see what Eichel and Marner are able to do together on the top line for the Golden Knights. That was Vegas through this whole process of Marner and, through this whole process of Marner, where's he going to go? Is he going to go somewhere else? It always seemed like Vegas was like the favorite, and Vegas is always going to be a favorite to land the big fish. We've seen that with, when they got Pietrangelo in free agency a few years ago. They're always after the big name, even if it's not the biggest name, even getting guys like Hurdle and Hannafin. You make through trades, they're going to always be after the big fish. In
their short history, they've always done that.
Right.
You brought up Pietrangelo. By the way, shout out to Alex Pietrangelo, who's stepping away due to health reasons. So,
yeah,
if it's retirement, congrats on a phenomenal career. But back to Vegas, it's so Vegas-like because everyone started saying Vegas, and I started saying, how does Vegas have the money for this? And then I was like, it doesn't matter. This is the Vegas Golden Knights we're talking about. They're in on everybody who's a big name. And I want to go back to something you said about the playoffs. He's not going to he doesn't have to be the guy there.
Right.
You've got Jack. You've got Mark Stone, who we know has performed in the playoffs. Then you keep going down the list. We were talking before about potentially retired numbers. William Karlsson's still there. And then on top of this, they made another trade with Nashville late Sunday night, the Nick Hague trade. And they got a guy in there named Colton Sissons, or as I like to call him, Classes Incisions. And I said, Colton Sissons is actually the perfect Nick Waugh replacement guy because he can fit in your top 9 just about anywhere. He kills penalties. He could probably play on a second power play unit. I kind of really like this from Vegas's point of view. And then on top of that, you get Marner. But just to flip it to the Leafs, they had to lose Mitch Marner. And they didn't want to lose him for nothing based on, what happened at the trade deadline. There were reports of him being swapped for Mikko Rantanen, who also would have been a free agent today had he not extended in Dallas. Again, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But it was Mitch Marner's right to say, listen, at the time, his wife was due with their, I believe, first child. So he did not want to pick up and go, which is fine. That was his prerogative based on having a no trade clause. But this marriage between Marner and the Leafs had to end for this reason. It was time someone went. You can't keep running it back year after year after year, expecting something to change when clearly it just wasn't. You know, you brought up his numbers in games 5 through 7 throughout his career. I mean, games 5 through 7 against Florida, he was a no-show in those games. I think he tallied 2 shots, I think was the number he had in those games on goal. It's
Right.
just not enough. And he was the easy punching bag because he was a number 4 pick. He was a Toronto guy. He wasn't like John Tavares, but
it's so crazy how he was the hometown kid and the hype that he had being drafted in 2015 by Toronto, and they embraced him like this is a guy. He grew up a Leaf, and just how like the fan base just turned on him. And it's crazy how he became the villain. And like, it's unbelievable. And, oh no, go ahead.
No, I just go out there. He's going to go to Vegas and he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And listen, I get it. The Western Conference is brutal with a capital B. The Oilers are still going to be good. We'll get into them in a little bit. The Avs are still really good. The Winnipeg Jets are still really good. Oh, by the way, the Dallas Stars are still really good teams. Although if they trade Jason Robertson, that may change my thinking on Dallas, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Well, Vegas is right there at the top of the list.
Yep.
And the big thing for me on Vegas is them acquiring Marner means Mitch Marner doesn't go to the LA Kings, who are also rumored to make a heavy move.
Yeah.
For Marner. So this was big for Vegas. As everything is in Vegas, it's bigger. And for the Leafs, it's a new era. And I'll give Brad Treliving this. I think he's done a very good job before free agency. He was able to get Tavares done at a nice price to bring back. Matthew Nyes gets done at a very reasonable price.
Good term on that, too. You're getting him for his prime.
Right, and they didn't let him go to market, so he couldn't get offer sheeted.
Yeah.
And then you get a roster player for Mitch Marner. Now, if we're going to continue with the Leafs, they're going to look for some other things today. Do I know what they're going to get? No. There have been rumors they're looking to trade in for a top 6 player. We'll see what happens. Free agency starts in about 45 minutes.
Yeah, and stuff's probably going to break before that because that's always how that works.
Yeah.
It'll probably pick up in like 15.
Speaking of stuff breaking, the state of Florida is not broken. The 2-time reigning, defending, undisputed Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, well, they broke a lot of news and they broke a lot of hearts yesterday as they were able to bring back all 3 of their major free agents. Sam Bennett signs 8 by 8. Aaron Ekblad gets an 8-year deal worth around 6.1. And then the cherry on top is Brad Marchand re-upped for 6 more years after helping lead the Panthers to win their second consecutive Stanley Cup. And if there's not a player on the Panthers who represents that franchise more than Brad Marchand.
It's an absolute masterclass by Zito as GM for the Panthers. I mean, that was what all the insiders were saying was, for in the NHL, it was like, those are the big 3 that they needed to bring back. Bennett, Marchand, and Ekblad. And like, I mean, the biggest thing to turn was Ekblad, because that for the longest time was, it seems like he's the furthest away. He's probably going to be the odd man out. Marchand, it was, Marchand, there was a little of that, but then it seemed like it was going to be Bennett and Marchand resigning, and then Ekblad was going to leave. I know Anaheim was talked about there because Quenneville's the head coach there, and Quenneville really liked Ekblad when he was in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So there was talk about that being a possible pairing if Ekblad hit free agency. I even saw Carolina was mentioned for Ekblad as well. And he ends up staying. And for me, I think Ekblad broke yesterday before Marchand did.
Yep.
But there was something about when Ekblad signed where I'm like, they're going to get Marchand done too. They're gonna be able to bring all three back. And good on Zito. I mean, you found a winning formula and you were able to bring in guys. I mean, he already had the winning formula anyway because they just won their second straight cup. But you brought back such the key contributors. Bennett was like the leading, one of the leading guys for the Panthers in the postseason. He got hot at the right time, as the whole Panthers team really did. Marchand was, I mean, if Marchand's not the best trade deadline at rental, now he's not a rental anymore, but was a rental acquisition, I don't know who is, because he's definitely tied for first. If he's not just first all by himself in trade deadline acquisitions to win a cup. And then obviously Ekblad, that's where one of the key pieces in that whole turnaround, because Ekblad has been there since, for 11 seasons now, since
number one pick.
Yeah. I mean, that was the turnaround there, is because, and speaking of that draft class, I mean, you look at 2014, Ekblad won. He's a Panther. I mean, he's been a Panther since the beginning. Reinhart, number 2 overall. Now he's with the Panthers. Third overall was was it Bennett, or was Bennett 4? I'm trying to remember.
Hold on. I will look this up.
Because I feel like
it's 14, right?
Yeah, I feel like Draisaitl went 3, unless it was Bennett. But either way, your top 4, Bennett was, was with Calgary and then went to the Panthers.
All right, Draisaitl and Bennett are flip-flop. Draisaitl 3, Bennett 4.
Okay, that's what I thought. I originally think my original thought process I thought was Bennett was 3 and Draisaitl was 4, but it was the other way around.
Both Alberta teams picked 3 and 4.
And all 4 of those guys were in the Cup final 2 years in a row, which is crazy.
But by the way, just to keep going on this, William Nylander went 8.
Yep.
Nikolai Ehlers, who should be off the board relatively quick today.
Yeah.
He's the biggest name left.
I think I saw Carolina was the favorite to land.
Carolina's involved.
Anaheim
went 9. Kevin Fiala went 11. Dylan Larkin 15. Your guy Alex Tuck went 18.
Yep.
Well, 25 was David Pastrnak.
According to Elliot Friedman, Jake Allen is re-signing in New Jersey. It's 5 years at $1.8 million average annual value.
Okay, so it's not money, but that's term for Jake Allen.
That's definitely he probably just wanted job security.
Yeah,
and he got it. I mean,
he definitely got it.
Not that he'll be there all 5 years, but necessarily. But
but having him there to back up Markstrom gives you 2 good goaltenders. So
yep.
But back to Florida. I when the Bob father tweeted this out, Bob McKenzie, that Ekblad was staying, I was like, okay, we need to see the number, because I really thought Ekblad was the goner and it was going to be Marchand and Bennett. Mainly because I thought Seth Jones coming in, he was replacing Ekblad next year. That was my thought process in there.
According to Irfan Gaffar, the Oilers are trading Victor Arvidsson to the Bruins.
Ooh.
So that's a speedy winger. originally he was only in Edmonton for a year, right? Because he was with LA before
He was
that.
with LA.
Started his career with Nashville. That's a guy. He's bounced around the league a lot more than I thought he would. But that's a guy who has bounced around a couple different places. Now we'll see what he's able to do in Boston. Again, I mean, that's a nice winger addition for the Bruins. The Bruins are interesting because I think their thought process is we're going to just need to retool a little bit. Obviously they're a big hockey market, so they're going to be able to attract some free agents. But, the era ended, tying it back to the Florida thing when Marchand left. I mean, because that ended the era of Zdeno Chara, Milan Lucic, Dries Bergeron. Marchand was the last piece of that. I mean, unless you want to count Pasternak, but Pasternak was kind of
Pasternak is the beginning of the new era in my opinion.
Right, exactly. So he kind of was just, he took the, he kind of was the, he took the baton from the old core and is now carrying that.
He learned and then he brought it over.
Yeah.
McAvoy.
Yep.
But here's going to be the thing about the Bruins. Jeremy Swayman got off to that terrible start this year after holding out for the big contract, which he eventually got. If Jeremy Swayman can be Jeremy Swayman and be really good, I kind of like where the Bruins are. Right. Pasternak is an elite player. Pavel Zacha has turned himself into a pretty good player. Defensively, we're talking McAvoy, Lindholm. I know they trade Brandon Carlo to Toronto, but they have pieces there. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee the Bruins make the playoffs again or next year, but they're going to be a competitive hockey team.
Yep.
They're not just going to roll over and play dead. But I mean, I just got to go back to Florida because think of this Atlantic Division.
Yep.
Florida's the cream of to quote the Macho Man Randy Savage, they're the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
They're at the top. Toronto, we just talked about. They are very good.
Yep.
I still happen to love the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, for sure.
I really thought they could give Florida all they could handle last year, and Florida didn't make it easy. Just talked about Boston. The Ottawa Senators made the playoffs for the first time in how long last year, and they're going to get better, we think. Detroit just got John Gibson. There's a lot of pressure on Steve Yzerman to make the playoffs next year. And then there's the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep.
Who would lose a game to a group of lightsabers at the moment. 2 Star Wars references on this already.
There you go.
But, man, the Atlantic's great. Florida's able to retain everybody. What did you think of the state income tax thing? Because I don't think we've talked about it.
It's an interesting topic. I know my whole thing is isn't it an advantage? Yes. But no one was, I'm defending the Florida Panthers here. No one was talking about that being an advantage when the Panthers missed the playoffs for a decade. Because that happened. And whenever star players would go to the Panthers in the mid 2000s, it was because players were close to on their way out. I mean, my immediate thought is Joe Nieuwendyk, Gary Roberts. Those were guys that were, towards the end of their careers, and they ended up going to play for the Panthers. And I mean, Joe Nieuwendyk, Hockey Hall of Famer, but you're getting tail end of his career Joe Nieuwendyk, not Dallas Stars, Calgary Flames Joe Nieuwendyk. Or even New Jersey Devils Joe Nieuwendyk. So, so that was, but I can remember when the Florida Panthers were assigning and this is no offense to I'm I'm a big Sean Bergenheim fan.
Yeah, great Islander.
But there was a time where the Panthers' top free agent signings, I think one year they just signed a bunch of players, but it was like Sean Bergenheim, um, like Matt Bradley, Tomas Fleischman. Like they were signing quantity, and like they were good players, but they weren't like the top free agent guys. So they were adding offense, but they were adding like a very limited amount of offense. I think Dominic Moore was in there too for a short period with the Panthers. I don't know. Are we able to check about like for YouTube comments on here? I don't know how that works.
I can go on there. Yeah.
I think my friend Brian mentioned about joining the discussion. We can at least see about like if he has any questions.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments in here. Just give me a second. Also, Frank Saravalli, Logan Stankoven is re-upping or has signed an 8-year extension in Carolina. So that's the big piece. So
I know we're a hockey show, but the Dolphins did just do something.
Yep, I know. I saw it.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to see if
I put it in our other group chat.
All right.
So if he wants to join, Nate, go to the YouTube, clip the link, and copy, paste it, send it to him.
Oh no, I already sent it to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he wanted to know if we could see his comments.
Yes, I've got the live chat up.
Okay.
Yeah, so shout out Brian.
Shout out Brian.
So yeah, Logan Stankoven re-ups in doesn't re-up. He signs an 8-year extension. I think it's $48 million. Let me just double check the net money on that with Saravalli. Yeah, it's 8x6, so it's $48 million. So Carolina keeps a young player who I got to tell you, Carolina they're going to be good for a while. All right, so Pierre LeBrun still pending the league trade call, but Arvidsson waived his no trade going to Boston for a mid-round pick.
Gotcha.
So as we await on some of these other things that go down. So let me ask you this one, Nate. What would you like the Sabres to do today, if anything?
Was that what he asked?
No, that was me. That was me.
I mean, you have to. I want to know what's going on with Bo Byram. I want to know whether or not they're actually it seems like they're not against the idea of keeping him, which is fine. I mean, like maybe. See, I'm not against the idea of sign him to a 2-year bridge deal, but like continue to look for a suitor afterwards, because he'll be worth more with term. So like see how so what I would do, sign him to a 2-year deal, and at the trade deadline see if you can get anything for him. If the season's good, I'm assuming that he's
Yep. How about they fold and move to Quebec?
Oh, is that what Brian said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, bring back the Nordiques.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it would probably be Houston or something, because I know that's been talk about the expansion is Houston and Atlanta for a third try, which honestly, I would be interested to see them try to bring the Thrashers back.
Bring back the Thrashers. They had the coolest jerseys.
No, I see for Byram, if you don't like what you see, See, the problem is because he's an RFA, you're not going to get a good enough deal.
Right.
But if you put him on a 2-year deal and just say, look, we know you want a bigger role elsewhere because you see Darlene in power as in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Sign a 2-year deal, and the plan is that you're not going to be here the full time. Let's see how the year goes. If you want out still, if we're doing really well and you're enjoying how the team's doing, if somehow they're having a really good year, and you want to stay, then we just won't trade you, and you could be part of the team, and whatever happens. If you still want out around the trade deadline, you still have it's a rental, but it's not even really a rental. It's a rental for that playoffs wherever he would go. But then you also have term with the new, another whole year with wherever he
goes. Yeah.
And having a year and a half with playoffs, obviously, wherever, he would go, that would be, you could fetch something more significant for him, which works out for the Sabres part of it. So everybody gets what they want out of it, and again, if the Sabres do well, which would be nice, who knows if that happens, but it'd be nice, and he's like, you know what, I'm actually having fun with how everything's going. All right, well, cool. You can stay for the other year and a half or wherever. But you're constantly in conversation with him about it and his agent and seeing, what I know there's been talk about players who don't want to come to play for the Sabres. The reason he wants to leave is because he wants a bigger role. He thinks he can be number one defenseman somewhere. It doesn't sound like he doesn't like the Sabres or he doesn't like his teammates.
He wants more ice time.
He wants just to play. He wants more ice time. And he wants to be more of a focal point, which he's never been on the blue line. You look at where he was in Colorado. Makar was the guy.
Yep.
Even Devin Tays, you could argue, was in front of him as well. Now it's Darlene and Power. So he wants to be maybe he even wouldn't be against being a 2 somewhere. He wants to be on a top pairing probably, which okay. But obviously as an RFA, you're only going to get so much.
Right.
So
as long as that restricted tag is on you.
Yeah, you're only going to
offer sheet you or whatever it is. You kind of lose a little bit of value because most teams, depending on the player, will match said offer sheet. Because how you feel about Bo and Byram is the same way I feel about Keandre Miller.
Yep.
Where I've been sitting here going, I'm not sure I want to give up a top 4 defenseman at 25 years old.
Because he's about to hit his prime.
Who one is still learning to be a defenseman because he grew up as a winger who transitioned to D.
Right.
So him playing in a new system with Mike Sullivan at the helm now for the Rangers, him not having a partner in Jacob Trouba where, listen, I'm not going to blame everything on Jacob Trouba, but I'm going to say he's going to get a partner set. He's a part of the top 4. If you don't get what you get, if you're Chris Drury, hey, here's a 2-year bridge, and let's see what you think you're worth after that. And again, if someone comes calling, he does have trade value. But I think you're right in the sense of where those two guys are in the same set. So let's see what happens with some of the RFAs as well. I do want to get into one specific team who announced 2 extensions, that being the Vancouver Canucks. Connor Garland signed a 6-year extension by $6 million, and Thatcher Demko 3 years, 8.5, I believe, on the AAV on his new extension.
Yep.
I have no idea what the heck is going on in Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, when talking about the Canucks, shout out to the hockey guy, Shannon. We're big fans. We appreciate everything you do.
Shout out Pavel Bori for missing that 94 penalty shot against Mike Richter.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, and we gotta talk about the Evander Kane.
Yeah,
bit too, because the Canucks are an enigma. I think that's a good way to describe this, how they are currently, because you just dealt with a situation in Vancouver where JT Miller and Elias Pettersson didn't get along, and it, like, I think from what I understand, divided the locker room to an extent, and it became a headache for your captain in Quinn Hughes, and now to a point where there's talk about Quinn Hughes going to Jersey to play with his brothers, which who knows if that'll be what happens or not, but and obviously JT Miller is no longer on the Canucks. He's with the Rangers.
Just to stop you for a minute.
Sure.
The Oilers are sending Arvidsson to Boston. Boston's taking all the money for a 5th rounder in 27. So there's your official Victor Arvidsson deal.
But yeah, and the thing is that there's still been lingering effects even with JT Miller in New York now. Pettersson's still in Vancouver, but there's still like kind of lingering effects in the locker room from that happening. And obviously there's still questions in the air about whether Hughes is going to be in Vancouver long-term. And then you go and add Evander Kane, who, we could spend a while going through the different issues that have happened with him, and and you're bringing him into a locker room with Elias Pettersson. Who knows if Kane and Pettersson are going to necessarily get along, or if Kane's going to have issues with anyone else, Quinn Hughes or anybody. It's a head scratching move for a team that's already had a whole player versus player incident this whole past season, and you signed up for another potential headache in your locker room. What are we doing? I know they brought him in to be a top 6 forward, but they literally signed up for, hey, you know what? I know we had a lot of issues we had to address with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, which led to one of our players literally leaving because we had to address this issue, and it was an issue that shrouded the season. Because if anyone's going to remember this past season's Vancouver Canucks, it's going to be about Miller and Pettersson. Yeah. That's what this whole season is going to be remembered as. And you decided, as Alvin and Jim Rutherford, hey, you know what? I think we're going to sign up for more drama. That's what this team is lacking, more drama.
And this is where I get confused, because I'm with you. I hate the Kane edition. But I hate it for 2 reasons. Everything you said, because what happens if him and Pettersson don't get along? But I also hate it for this reason. Why the hell are you trying to help the Oilers?
Yeah.
Of all the teams you want to help in the conference, the Edmonton Oilers would be the last team to help.
That helped with their cap.
Right, exactly. That you're giving up a pick for Evander Kane. You're taking on all of his money. Meanwhile, you're freeing up space for the Oilers to do something without getting a sweetener on top of this. So if it was Kane and a pick for a pick, okay, I'm not going to hate it as much. But you just get Evander Kane. And the other thing I don't get about Vancouver, and I love Thatcher Demko. I think he's a top 10 goalie in the league when he's healthy. He hasn't been healthy in feels like 2.5, 3 years. I think at some point Vancouver has to figure out who they are and what they are. They fire Rick Tocchet, and in my opinion, I don't like that decision at all, because I don't blame everything last year on Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
You're going to lose Brock Besser in free agency. You've already lost JT Miller. And by the way, I believe Quinn Hughes is eligible to sign an extension today. And who knows if he wants to sign an extension and stay because of all the drama.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tempting for him to just be like, there's a lot less drama over where my brothers are right now.
Right. Or Vancouver could say, listen, the Devils don't have what we want. Where else are you willing to go? And you could always play that game with them. But those games don't work. So
I know talking about when we briefly mentioned about Bo Byram, but I know that was mentioned on a podcast. I think tying the Canucks to Bo Byram is like if Hughes wants out, Byram
Hughes
would
wants out Byron's to replace.
Yeah, which I mean, Byram's not going to be Quinn Hughes
No one's going to be.
but I mean, he's a good talent.
Quinn Hughes is a second or third best defenseman in the league.
Yeah. It's okay. If we're ranking the top two defensemen, was it Makar 1, him 2? I guess you could flip those possibly, but.
No, Makar's 1. I put Victor Hedman at 2 still.
Okay. I mean,
and then I'd put Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi 3-4.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I don't think it's a big gap between the 4. But yeah, I think I'd still put Hedman there. I love me some Victor Hedman. But yeah, I don't know the direction the Canucks want to go in. Because a couple of years ago, they were the top of the Western Conference. They were really good. We thought, okay, they're going to be here for a while. And then all the drama of last year happened. And now you got a new coach in Adam Foote. No Brock Besser, no JT Miller.
Real quickly, Sabres have re-signed defenseman Ryan Johnson to a 3-year contract with an AAV of $775,000. So if Brian, if you're listening, Ryan Johnson will be staying with the Sabres for 3 years. So I know there was I had heard a rumor that he might want out, but he apparently doesn't because he just re-signed for 3 years. So he, hopefully he gets more of a chance.
There's your number 7 defenseman.
I mean, I would give him more of a shot this upcoming season. I know there was talk. I mean, I saw a rumor about maybe the Sabres would bring Gilbert back, a friend of mine who I went to school with for like a decade plus. I know that was talked about. Oh, maybe he'll come back, on like a 2-year deal or something, as a possibility. We'll see if that actually happens. But yeah, good for Ryan Johnson. I'm hoping they give him more of a playing role because he had some pretty, he had good signs, and I think he's been pretty good in Rochester. But so Ryan Johnson stays. They also signed a 1-year deal with. Or 2-year deal, 2-year, 2-way contract, re-signing Jack Rathbone. So that's
great name, Rathbone.
Yeah. So so the Sabres announced that. So that's where that is going at this point in time.
We've also got a trade.
Yep.
The Blues and the Canadiens. Logan Mailloux goes from Montreal to St. Louis in exchange for Zach Bolduc. Mailloux, 22 split last season between the Canadiens and the Laval Rocket. He had 4 points in 7 regular season games with the Canadiens, while he led the Rocket defense with 33 points, 12 goals, 21 assists in 63 games.
Bolduc, I know, was a name that was brought up as possibly getting moved in St. Louis. His name had been kind of floating around.
22 years old.
Yeah. I'm very young guy, has a chance to, goes to a new destination and, we'll see what he does,
He's a Quebec native.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, that's a nice, he kind of gets to go home a little bit.
Was Mailloux the kid who was in trouble the year of his draft, or am I thinking of someone else?
Yes. I mean, I know there were 2 players that kind of were like that, but Mailloux was one of them. Yeah. So, and Friedman mentions this is not a Kyrou deal because Kyrou was not part of this. I know Montreal. I know Kyrou's name's been floating out there. There was talk about, with Peterka getting, moved. If Peterka was going to go to St. Louis, would Kyrou possibly come back? I know Montreal was also interested. Here's an interesting part with Kyrou is that his no trade clause kicked in today. So that, I mean, if you were going to try to get him, I feel like it would make more sense that you would get him before today.
Again, this was the same thing with Marner. The Leafs had an opportunity to move him before his no trade kicked in, and
then Elias Pettersson's no move, I think, or I don't know if it was a no move or no trade, but that also kicks in today too. So that just became harder to move him out. So, I know Vancouver said that they were content keeping him and not, moving him. So that became a lot harder to get Pettersson. So for some teams.
And with the cap rising, though, if anyone wanted to add a Pettersson, they could. But I still don't get the whole Cairo and St. Louis thing either.
Sabres announced they have acquired a 6th-round pick in 2026 from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for Sam Lafferty. So Lafferty is heading to Chicago for a 6th-round pick.
4th-line player.
Yeah. Was Lafferty already there?
I believe he was.
So he goes back for a 6th-round pick. That was kind of expected. I don't think they were planning to bring Lafferty back. Because I know he was with Pittsburgh before. Yep. Yeah, so he was with Chicago for parts of 2 seasons. He was there in 2021-22, played 46 games, 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points. And then in 2022-23, he played 51 games, had 10 goals and 11 assists for 21 points before being traded to Toronto. So, played parts of 2 seasons with Chicago. Now he goes back. He only had, I believe he signed with the Sabres for a 2-year deal. So he's got 1 year left. So, we'll see what he might get traded from Chicago around the trade deadline again for someone who might need another forward on their bottom 6. But Lafferty going to Chicago for a 6th-round pick in 2026. So Sabres are being active somewhat.
I mean, Chicago was one of those teams rumored to be in on Marner and do something big because they have a lot of cap space. Also, Connor Bedard's eligible for an extension.
Also, I think you said it before, but it needs to be said every July 1st. That is not Happy Bonilla Day, Bobby Bonilla Day. It's Happy Canada Day. If anyone
Happy Canada Day to those
if any Canadians are watching. It's always interesting how NHL free agency day is always Canada Day too. Well, except for when obviously they had to, we had free agency.
The Toronto Blue Jays also beat the Yankees last night.
But yeah, so I guess kind of finishing the Vancouver discussion. I don't think we got to Demko. Demko re-signed for what, 3 years?
Demko re-up 3 by 8.5 or something like that.
He's someone who, I feel kind of bad for because he's had injury issues.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was someone who, when he was playing in college, I mean, there was a lot of promise for what he was able to do when he was in college, and just, being able to, if he was able to transition to the NHL game, and he showed flashes of what he could be, and just injuries are just such a brutal part of the game, just with how tough it is. And, it's something that he's had to deal with, but good for him being able to get a 3-year extension with the Canucks. As you said, though, it's just a confusing timeline if you're Vancouver, what's going to be happening with Quinn Hughes. Obviously, the Kane deal, I don't really know a lot of Vancouver fans that like the Kane deal. I know that it's technically a homecoming for him, but,
that could go one of 3 or 4
ways. It's either going to go well or it's it might, it could, I guess it necessarily doesn't have to go ugly, but, I just feel like we're already I
like Demko a lot. Like we mentioned, just the injuries are killer. But to me, I would have checked to see what I could have gotten. They just won their farm team, Abbotsford, just won the Calder Cup. So maybe it's time to maybe change the scenery would help Thatcher Demko. I don't know, but the Canucks are in a very confusing spot. Let's be honest, we talked about the Atlantic before. The Pacific Division, it's not the Central, but it's pretty darn good when you're talking Vegas, Edmonton, LA. The Ducks are shooting for a playoff spot now with Joel Quenneville at the helm.
Yeah.
And the additions, they're trying to do something.
I'm interested to see how that pairing works, Quenneville and Anaheim, because now has been what has been talked about when you talk about the Ducks. Now is the time for, okay, let's start to really build something here, after, and they're always going to be in on, I mean, there was talk they were in on Marner.
Yeah. They could have offered him, I think, 15 million or 14 million, something like that per year.
Yeah. So,
and they got some young talent there.
I mean, hey, and some of the names there because they almost became Rangers West a little bit.
Well, look, yeah, they got Rangers, Trouba, Kreider, Ryan Strome, Frank Vatrano, but Cutter Gauthier.
Yep.
Mason McTavish, who's an RFA, and Lucas Dostal between the pipes now because of the John Gibson trade, which feels like we've talked about for cue up the meme. It's been 84 years.
I mean, I can remember Gibson being talked about being traded when he wasn't even fully with the team. Like when he was just
Freddie. He was Freddie Anderson's backup.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember back in 2015. Oh, Gibson could be a guy to target, and it's just like no, the Ducks kind of view him as being like their future in net, and like Freddie Anderson was still like Freddie Anderson led the Ducks to like a Western Conference final.
Yeah.
I believe that was against Chicago. I believe
Chicago.
That was 2015.
The last Blackhawk Cup, I believe.
So, but
they've got a decent blue line. Dostal's going to get a run in net, which he deserves because he's been awesome when given the opportunity. They make the Trevor Zegras move, which, by the way, shame on you, Philly. I needed Torts there to coach Trevor Zegras because that would have been fun, but can't have fun in Philly. Calgary is an improving hockey team. Just continue the Pacific Division. And San Jose's on the young and up-and-coming trail. They got a ton of cap space, too. Do something today. If they do anything. So, interesting time in Vancouver. We are 8 minutes away.
I feel like this has been a year where things haven't really leaked as much.
No, there's been no leakage.
I mean, granted, stuff was happening like the day before, so like a lot of that's been. A lot of that's been re-signings and stuff like that. Guys like Marchand and Marner are, like I said, either re-signed or and there was a sign and trade. Which honestly, look, here's what I'll say about the Leafs. Good for them that they were able to get something for Marner because they were so close to getting nothing for him. And I know Leafs fans were over Marner altogether. A lot of them were just like, all right, bye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But, getting anything for him at the end of the day is like kind of a win for them. And they get Nick, is it Nick Roy or Nick Waugh? Waugh. Okay. I was
Patrick's son.
With Derek Roy being a Sabre for, a bunch of years. It's like, you always got to make sure it's, because I remember people were calling him Derek Waugh when he first entered the league. And it's like, no, he's not, he's Roy. He's not Waugh. So, but yeah, so we got to talk about Noah Dobson. That's one guy we have not talked about.
That's true. We have not gotten.
Shout out to the other Noah who likes Montreal and Noah Tremblay. So, yeah, that's a. I'm curious your opinion on that trade. I mean, obviously, there was talk Dobson wanted $11 million from the Islanders, and he only gets, when he that's like a sign and trade, and he, he's going to be making $9.5 million for Montreal for the next. Was it 8 years?
Yeah, I believe it's 8. Let me double check.
So, I believe it was 8, if I'm not mistaken, because he signed it and then was traded. great move for the blue line for Montreal. They're Montreal made the playoffs, and they're not content with just being, making the playoffs, and they're adding big moves. I mean, obviously, they went and got Line in Montreal. That was a big forward acquisition for them. Now they're adding to the blue line. They got a guy like Dobson, who's going to provide some offense as well. I like the move for them.
8 by 9.5.
Now, so Montreal, I like the move for Montreal. I guess the question comes in is, the assets that they gave out to get him. It was 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Was that an overpayment?
So I think it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
On one side of the street, look at Montreal. They are a very young team. Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky. But at the same time, I don't feel like you can have enough in your pocket in case you want to make that big splashy move. So I'm going to say if you wanted to give up one of the firsts, I'm okay with it. Giving up both and seeing what the Islanders got in return, which is they got back Eklund, who they took, and they took one of the bigger defensemen whose name just slipped my mind. I kind of think they could have given up one for Dobson to give up both. Seems a little
kind of overpay to be the winner.
Yeah. And then you have to give up $9.5 million for the next 8 years. And look, Noah Dobson could totally be worth it for them. I think he's a good player, young player. He's still developing. So he kind of fits the mold of what Montreal is right now, which is young, fast, up and coming. My question about Montreal is going to be their goaltending. How good is it going to be? Is Montembeault really the guy, or are they going to have to go out and get themselves a legitimate number one goalie? I think that's still the question.
I mean, they're not going to be able to do in free agency because that's just a weak free agent class.
Right. They're going to have to. They'd have to trade for that guy. And
possible. This is just an idea. This is not like potentially happening or anything like this. How would you feel about Byram as a fit in Philly?
Philly.
One possible name that's been floated out is like, if you were to send Byram to Philly, is getting Owen Tippett back.
I don't do that deal from Philly. I like Owen Tippett.
Yeah, I know. Byram for Tippett was like thrown out as like an idea.
Yeah. The other thing for me is Philly's got a guy similar to Byram and Jamie Drysdale. He's a little bit more on the offensive side. He's still growing. I don't know if I would do that if I'm Danny Briere. Unless I totally loved Bo Byram, which I don't know if Danny Briere totally loves Bo Byram. I think an interesting spot for Byram, if we're having this conversation, I think a very interesting spot would be a team we talked about before, Chicago.
Okay.
I think if you put him there, because that team, again, they're not ready to win, but you got to surround Connor Bedard with pieces here.
Okay, so if Byram is to go to Chicago, what kind of return do you think happens? There's got to be a forward in there.
It's got to be a forward. Let me look at the Blackhawk roster if I'm gonna do this. I don't want to sound like a fool. I don't think they're giving up Bedard. So
per Kevin Weeks, I'm told the New York Islanders are among the potential landing spots for goalie David Riddick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Big game Dave. I was looking up the Blackhawk roster. That's what I was looking. But yeah, I like Byram. I just I don't think Philly's a fit. Let's see, Chicago. The other thing I would think about is Nashville. Just because Roman Yossi's getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
Bo Byram learns from Yossi, then eventually he could take over. That would be the
That's
other
the thing
stuff.
for me. Like, based on what I've seen from Byram, like, do I think he can be a 2? Yes. Do I think he can be a 1? I don't know. I
Would
don't know.
you take on the contract of Tyler Bertuzzi?
I mean, he
Would
can still play, can he? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
he's 30.
I would probably. I mean, he was a guy that I was interested in as like a free agent option.
And
So
if you would do Bertuzzi and a pick for Byram, I think that's something.
what's Bertuzzi's contract look like? That's what I'm curious about.
I want to say it was 5x6, but I will double check for you.
Oh, I was going to take a look myself.
Oh,
But,
okay. Go for it. If not,
um,
I could keep going with this. So, uh,
it
they
was a
just brought out TJ Brody, so
it was a 4-year deal where his cap hit is 5.5. So he's about to do year 2 of that deal. So you'd get 3 years out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna plan to do that or not. After just 1 year, but
And it is officially 12:01 p.m.
so I would imagine things are gonna start leaking.
So let's see what happens.
From David Pagnota, this is not a new thing. This is tied into Arvidsson. Arvidsson waived his no trade clause and accepted a trade to Boston. And obviously, Edmonton's freeing up more cap space with this move. So,
Right.
so Arvidsson had a no trade clause, and Boston, he was willing to waive it to go to the Bruins in this move, which is not surprising. Boston's
All right. We've got an announcement on a move.
Okay.
Winnipeg Jets. Happy Jonathan Toews is officially a Winnipeg Jet Day.
There you go.
Jonathan Toews, for those who don't know, signed a 1-year deal with the Winnipeg Jets to go home. He's missed the last couple of years due to COVID. So we'll see what he's got going home.
This is so interesting because, like, I feel like, I mean, again, a lot of the top names were like off the market already, but it just seems like normally it was just like this guy's going here, this guy's going here, this guy's going here, like, and it's just like you usually hear about, like right up until, I mean, I guess trades have been happening, so I guess that's also fair, but
Also, apparently there's been a lot of people talking about the crackdown of tampering.
right.
Which,
Well, there was that whole thing with the Marner,
yeah,
with Marner, and that the league. I mean, because there was talk that Vegas has been talking to Marner for like a year, which I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard that on the radio this morning.
yeah. Who knows? But but apparently the league is gonna come down hard on tampering. But now,
Elliot Friedman talked about has talked about possibilities for Brock Besser, Winnipeg, Edmonton, if the Oilers can create enough room. Boston. Oh, you mentioned this already. San Jose needs players.
ooh,
Um,
if San Jose gets Besser, would they then trade Tyler Toffoli? I don't know. I don't know because I know Toffoli's close with Macklin Celebrini, but Toffoli would be a guy I would have a lot of interest in on the trade market. As we sit here and wait, yeah, Sam Lafferty trade. Man, at this rate, the Knicks might hire a coach before we get some big news out of this.
I have a list here.
The list of Jericho.
No, it's not as good of a list. No, it's a list of free agents.
Okay.
So at least some names that we'll look at. Ehlers has obviously been talking.
Ehlers is at the top.
There's the Carolina connection there. Michael Granlund.
Yeah, Dallas can't re-sign him. So
Brock Besser, obviously. Evgeny Dadonov is a free agent. So that's one where I feel like, I mean, maybe he'll re-sign, but I'm not, too sure on that one. He hasn't really been talked about a whole lot.
No, he's an underrated player.
Jack Roslovic is a free agent.
Ranger legend.
Jonathan Drouin.
That's a really interesting one, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I like the player. I like the upside.
Gustav Nyquist.
That's a good veteran.
Andrew Mangiapane. I'm guessing
that's a very interesting one too.
I'm guessing he's probably not staying with the Caps.
Not at the number he was at.
Lars Eller.
I'll tell you this: the Rangers, I know, need a third line center. I'm torn on Lars Eller and Sean Corrali.
Jeff Skinner's a free agent.
No, thank you.
Jimmy Vesey's a free agent.
Bring him back just for fun. Funsies.
Mason Appleton.
Ooh, Winnipeg.
Christian Dvorak.
Now I got to play third line center for you.
Anthony Mantha.
You know what? That's another low-risk, high-reward guy coming off the injury he
had. Tanner Jeannot.
Physical player.
Nico Sturm. Bastion.
No. Nico Sturm needs to go to Boston to play for Marco Sturm.
That would be interesting. Bastion with
Devils.
Yeah. Cam Atkinson was bought out. Brandon Tanev.
That's a guy I got to tell you. You want an energy guy? That's Brandon Tanev.
James Van Riemsdyk's available. Hudson Fasching.
Is it bad? I keep thinking JVR retired.
Well, he was with. Where was he last year? Was he with Boston?
I want to say he was in Boston.
Yeah. Hudson Fasching, Kyler Yamamoto, Connor Sheary was bought out. Sherry, I think it's Sherry is how you pronounce it. He was bought out from Tampa. Matt Nieto. I think Hudson, and then going to the blue line, Dmitry Orlov.
I like Orlov. He's a solid player.
Perbix who was with Tampa. Gavrikov, which I would imagine is
the rumor's been the Rangers, and I would still waiting to hear and see.
Isn't Brent Burns, because Brent Burns is listed? Wasn't he going to resign a 3-year deal, or did that just not happen? Did I dream that whole thing? I thought he was going on a 3-year contract.
Well, here's the thing: Brent Burns is 40.
Yeah. So I mean, he honestly.
I got NHL Network on. They got the top 5 UFA defensemen. Brent Burns made $8 million last year.
Nate Schmidt is an interesting one. I would imagine he probably is not going back to Florida, but
I'll tell you this: I thought he was phenomenal during the Stanley Cup Final.
Jeff Petrie,
Habs legend.
Tony D'Angelo, I believe, is re-signing. Or is
the Islanders re-upped him?
Dumoulin.
Yeah.
Matt Grzelcyk.
That's another one I really like, to be honest with you.
Cody Ceci.
Ceci, you know what? Ceci's played well last year.
Let me ask you, because the next guy I bring up is a former Ranger. Where does Ryan Lindgren go?
You know what? He can play top 4 minutes. He's physical. He's probably going to want to go to a place he could win. I'm interested in a couple of spots for, to be honest with you. Him in Winnipeg, I think, could be a real interesting fit.
Right.
I'm not sure how good if that top fours look for an upgrade. I don't think he winds up in Washington. I think Washington's kind of set, especially after the Chikrin move.
Christian Dvorak, per Elliot Friedman, 1 year, $4.5 million with Philadelphia.
Third line set. There's your Scott Lawton replacement of last year.
Colin Blackwell stays in Dallas.
Yeah.
2 years at $775K.
Where is Dallas finding $775K?
Friedman does not think we're going to hear anything on Ehlers today. That it's going to play out a little bit, it sounds like, with him.
Yeah, and there's
McKenzie saying the same thing. Ehlers isn't expected to sign with the team today.
Wow.
So might as well just kind of wait.
So nothing, no Ehlers.
Noah Juleson to Philadelphia per Rick Dhaliwal.
Oh, the Canucks guy.
So, okay, so you go. So Dvorak and Juleson both going to Philly, it seems like early here.
All right, Danny Briere. Keith Jones going to work. I low-key like Dvorak. His dad, Radek Dvorak, was fantastic. Not sure if they were actually related or not.
I have to look that up. Yeah, it's rather quiet right now. At least so far.
Yeah, first couple of minutes. Yeah, so as we wait, I'm intrigued by Ehlers, though. I'm intrigued by who's in on this. According to Adrian Dater, the Avs are in on Ehlers. A lot of competitors.
Nick Alberga sounds like St. Louis will be very eager to speak to Michael Granlund when the market opens, which it's now been open.
Now it's open.
A little bit. But
we're here. We're waiting.
Juleson got a year for $900,000. It's a one-way deal for Juleson in Philly. Did we say the term for Dvorak? It's 1 year.
1 and 5 and 5.4.
5.4. Yeah, it's 5.4. The I think it was mentioned first as 4.5. It's the other way around. So
yeah, Elliot Friedman put that out there.
Yeah.
So I'll see as we keep waiting, but I feel like that's been a theme so far for guys who've re-signed and signed. A little bit of a high payment. Dvorak at 5 feels high, and then the Ivan Provorov deal yesterday from Columbus that felt very high.
Yeah. I thought Provorov for sure was gonna hit the market. I didn't think he was going back, but
Columbus interesting. Yeah. I mean, they made the Charlie Coyle move. Yeah, they got a high upside over there. There's your Ehlers tweet that this is going to. Oh, we got an official head coach hiring, Glenn Gulletson, back in Dallas. That's official.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I'm surprised they went back to him.
You know what? I wasn't surprised when they got rid of DeBoer because of the comments he made, but I'm
Well,
with
right. I just Gulletson being the guy though is
no,
I
no,
guess.
I'm with you. I thought that was a very strange one. So that's now official. Now I think every coaching vacancy's been filled too.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean when DeBoer
That's
was
right.
let
DeBoer
go,
got fired right after the conference
yeah,
finals.
he was. I mean, he was the only. Dallas was the only vacancy.
Yeah.
Everyone else already had coaches.
Uh, so as we wait for more. All right, we got an Avs extension. Parker Kelly got a 4-year extension.
Gotcha.
So that's from the Avs Twitter account.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we didn't bring up this with the Oilers. Evan Bouchard, 4 for 42. That's official.
Yeah, no, it was good that they were able to get that deal done. I know that a lot of people were curious about what the money was going to look like for that deal. 4 years is interesting. I didn't know if they were gonna try. I'm curious who. I'm assuming one side at least pushed for 8. I'm curious which side was like,
Well, Bouchard was rumored to want around like 10 and a half, 11. So
yeah,
I think based on, by the way, the Oilers have a huge free agent next summer they have to talk about. But and that's the guy, and I wrote a piece about this for the network. But McDavid basically challenged the Oilers, I felt, during his end of the season press conference.
right.
But like, we are on the preface of this thing. Now it's up to you to go out and put the cherries on top. And I think the big one is still in goal. And they've already missed out on John Gibson. So I don't know who they pull the trigger on.
I mean, but was Gibson going to Edmonton though? Were they going to trade him in division? That probably
I
wasn't.
don't think Anaheim cared. I think Anaheim just wanted out. And it was time for something to happen.
Right.
It's the Blues Canadian. This is from Cam Robinson. They expect Matej Blumel to sign with Boston.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. So sounds like young player. So this is from Pierre LeBrun. As we had reported before, the the Blues and Canadians had talked about a larger Jordan Kyrou deal. Obviously, that didn't come to pass. Kyrou's full move kicked in at midnight last night, so there was talk about Jordan Kyrou going to Montreal.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so far, not a ton of movement so far on the market, which most usually July 1st. This is Vin Diesel, Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Yeah, there were people that were saying that once Marchand and Marner and Ekblad were all off the market, it's like, all right, well, this free agency is going to be kind of uneventful.
Well, stuff happens.
Yeah, there's names out there, still as we kind of went through that list.
Yeah.
Not in the same realm as the ones that are already gone, but that's why they're either in a sign and trade or re-signed, is because they're so valuable. Why are they walking for nothing?
Yeah. Parker Kelly, that's 4 years, but 1.7 million. Elliot Friedman on the numbers.
Yeah. So again, just stuff that's
Hanging
happened so
out.
far. Christian Dvorak going to Philadelphia on a 1-year deal. We'll see what he's able to do in Philadelphia for them.
I'm kind of interested where they're trying to go because they've talked about rebuild since Briere Jones took over, and they've made a lot of good moves.
Right.
Let's be brutally honest. They've made a lot of good moves. And there's been talk of them upgrading in goal as well. That's been rumored.
Well, we haven't even talked about Zegras yet.
Yeah. Well, I briefly brought it up talking about Anaheim because I still wish Torts was there to coach them.
Yeah. Yeah, Zegras, it's a nice move.
That's a really good trade for them.
It's one where I know Zegras has kind of lost momentum as a player right now. Like he hasn't played his best hockey, but he has a new fresh start in Philly. We'll see what he's able to do.
And I think you just said the key. Fresh start.
Yeah.
Anaheim, that Southern California lifestyle, that could get to some people. He's a New York kid. And by the way, if they want to give it a try, him with Michkov, who had a really good rookie year.
I was gonna say that's what
that could be
what I would do. I would
have be dynamic
immediately together and see what happens.
Speaking of Rick Tocchet, Rick, we could help you coach.
Elliot Friedman, a lot of St. Louis noise around Michael Granlund.
Oh, boy. St. Louis is another one. They're kind of weird to me. Talked about Kyrou before. They got Robert Thomas. But then they still got guys like Braden Shed, too, who we've heard some rumors about the last couple of years, and nothing really happened.
Yeah.
And by the way, how good was Jordan Binnington after the Four Nations? He was fantastic.
Yep, definitely.
That gave him a ton of confidence. So they still have the defenseman as well. Everyone is still refreshing
Social media.
social medias to get the news of if anything's coming.
One thing that was brought up too is this is the 10-year anniversary of Phil Kessel being dealt to Pittsburgh.
Phil.
Phil the Thrill.
But by the way, talking about Pittsburgh rumors, Eric Carlson's name has been thrown around too. So it's another name to watch on the trade market. And here's something on the RFAs that we've been hearing. A lot of teams aren't going after the RFAs because they love the draft next year. All right. Emily Kaplan. Door is not closed on Edmonton with Corey Perry. So Edmonton might bring back the veteran.
My cat wants to make an appearance.
Forget who let the dogs out, who let the cats out.
Yeah.
All right, this isn't a free agent news. This is just cool. Joe Thornton is on the ice with the Sharks for development camp. Still no news on whether he actually signed on as a development coach or not. That from Max Miller, Sharks beat reporter. So
Interesting.
Jumbo, who's going into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Congrats to the class led by Joe, Zdeno Chara.
Yeah, I don't think we really talked about the Hall of Fame class.
No.
That's good for. I mean, obviously good for Jumbo Joe, good for Zdeno Chara, good for Alexander McGillney because that's a guy.
That's the one we've been waiting on.
First of all, his story getting into the league. I mean, he being the first player, to escape from the Soviet Union and like come over to play in the NHL where that was like forbidden to do. And just, the whole fear that the KGB were chasing the Sabres and McGillney when they were trying to get him over from the Soviet Union. And then obviously, I mean, when you think of McGillney, you think of the 76 goals that he scored for the Sabres, which he was not even the only person to score that many that year because he had a young Teemu Selanne that also had 76 goals that year for Winnipeg. So
the old Winnipeg Jets guys, not the new ones.
And then with McGillney, obviously goes to Vancouver. I think he had another 50-plus goal season with Vancouver. Won a cup with the Devils. So I mean, he did not need to wait that long to get in. I mean, I know there's a lot of other deserving names that got in between, when he was done and eligible and then able, now. But I'm glad that he finally gets his flowers for his contributions to the sport, because I mean, his story alone to get to the league was, groundbreaking, but also he had a great career as well. So I mean, it just made all the sense in the world, and I'm glad they finally got him in there.
Yeah, I got him in, Chara, Joe Thornton, Duncan Keith. When we talk about those Blackhawk teams that won all those cups, Taze gets his flowers, Patrick Kane gets his flowers, Duncan Keith gets his flowers, but I don't think people understand how good of a defenseman Duncan Keith really was. Dunkin' Donuts has the tagline, America runs on Dunkin'. Well, those Blackhawk teams ran on Duncan Keith. Playing 30 minutes a night. He was so good.
Per Elliot Friedman, as Dan Murphy alluded to, hearing Brock Besser is returning to Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah. So after all
Okay,
that,
Dan Murphy, 7 by 7.25 Besser in Vancouver.
so Besser, after it seemed like he had one foot out the door, he's back.
I am that one. Okay.
I thought for sure he was
I
going to
thought
the.
he was out.
I thought for sure he was going to the Wild.
I didn't think he was. I thought that was a possibility. I kept thinking also if Winnipeg lost out on Ehlers, Winnipeg would have done it. And the one other team I kept thinking about, and I don't know why, I kept thinking about Boston.
Yeah, I thought about.
I
Boston.
thought about Boston. I was like, you know what? Triple B it up. Besser, Boston Bruins. Actually, quadruple B. Brock Besser, Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
Jordan Hall. Sources confirm Noah Juleson to Flyers for 1 year, $900K, and Christian Dvorak to Flyers 1 year, 5.4. Okay, and then yeah, mentioned. So yeah, that's more just kind of confirming that some more. Um, Sharks have signed William Eklund to a 3 year, $5.6 million extension.
Okay, there's your little bridge deal.
Deal begins in 2026-27.
San Jose's building a nice team over there. Mike Greer's doing a nice job. A lot of picks, a lot of young players. Just want to go back to the Hall of Fame because we were talking Duncan Keith and McGillney. Jennifer Botterill
Yep.
got in, as did Brianna Decker on the women's side. And then is it Jack Parker? Am I right on Jack Parker? Coach BU for a long time. So and here's the press release.
I was gonna say I'm pulling it up too.
Yeah, Jack Parker. Jack Parker, who coached at BU. Danielle, I am gonna butcher this. Savagu.
Probably close. Yeah.
She was a coach in Canada. Jen Botterill, Zdeno Char, Brianna Decker, Duncan Keith, Alexander Mogilny, and Joe Thornton.
So, is it me or is there was there more? Was there like maybe a name or two more than they usually do? I feel like
I think it was more than usual. But I saw the people who were involved in the voting process. So I was like, you know what? Kind of like the modern.
I don't know if they actually have like a limit to like how many you can put in it.
That I don't. I know they limit it to 1 or 2 builders because they don't want to put in.
Yeah.
But I don't think players have a.
I wonder if because no one really seemed to talk about McGillney not getting in this year before he was announced as getting in. But I remember last year the noise was really loud when he didn't get in. It was basically like, how much longer are we going to wait for this guy to get in the hall? Like he needs to be in the hall like now. He should have been in the hall already. For whatever, his story, what he was able to do on the ice, for where he played, won a cup, was an offensive juggernaut when he played on the ice. Opened the door for so many other Soviet players like Sergei Fedorov to eventually come. Obviously, some of the Russian players, in the game now, like Ovechkin, obviously, so, I wonder if they even were just like, all right, we're going to make like an extra spot for him. He'll make sure he gets in, Well,
yeah, I think it's interesting because now, as we go forward, let's be honest, we got a lot of guys who are coming up who are, for sure going to get in. So you don't want to get a guy like Mogilny lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So I think the next guy I'm going to bang the drum for, and I'm going to keep doing is Rod Brendamore.
Right.
He was a outstanding player. Now he's doing a great job as the coach of the Carolina Hurricanes.
See if
See
there's.
if I can find 26.
Yeah, we you mentioned the term, right? We meant for Besser.
Vassar went for 7.
Okay. That's
Again, not something nobody saw coming. Okay, so here's a list of players eligible for the first time, or some of the players eligible for next year as I get the TSN thing open. Patrice Bergeron's going to be a first timer next year. One of the best two-way setters of the game. Phil Castle, who Nate mentioned earlier, this is the anniversary of him getting dealt to Pittsburgh. 400 goals, just shy of 1,000 points. It's a little bit sad. Eric Stahl. I never really viewed Eric Stahl as a Hall of Fame player. Carey Price is going to be eligible. Patrick Marleau will be in his third year of eligibility. Henrik Zetterberg. Ryan Getzlaf, this was his first year, so he'll be in his second year next year. And then some others with eligibility: Rod Brendamore, Sergei Gonchar, Jason Spezza, Curtis Joseph, Keith DeChuck, and Ryan Miller. Ryan Miller, one of the best American-born goaltenders. So we'll see what happens there with the Hall of Fame, and as we are just continuing on waiting for more deals to come. So, whoa, okay. Chris Johnston, Corey Perry finalizing a deal with the LA Kings. So, Corey Perry, the last couple of years, has been on the losing end of the Stanley Cup final, playing for the Oilers last couple of years. This is a good get for the LA Kings. Corey Perry could still play. Probably a fourth line player at this point, although he did play some with Connor McDavid during the Cup final. So Corey Perry going to LA probably help their power play, gives you some net front. I don't hate it from the LA Kings point of view, so we'll see what happens there. But Chris Johnston has that. So I do want to go back to the Besser thing, Besser deal really quick, as I still wait for Nate to return. But I'm again, this goes back to Vancouver as a whole. I'm kind of confused. This is 7x7 to 7.25. Besser's a good player, very good goal scorer, just never healthy. That's been a big bump in his career. So Vancouver just feels like they're running it back with the same group minus JT Miller. And I'm not necessarily sure that makes them one, a playoff team, but two, I'm just not sure where you stack them up. I like the roster. And is this enough to persuade Quinn Hughes to stay as opposed to him wanting to go to Jersey and potentially play with Luke and Jack, his brothers, in Jersey? So we'll see what happens there with the Canucks.
I am back. I had to step away real quick.
Okay. Corey Perry to the LA Kings.
Wow.
Chris Johnston. So what's going down on Twitter right now, I'm not calling it X. Sorry, Lonnie. What's going down on Twitter is people are making jokes that the LA Kings will now make it past the first round only to lose to the Cup final.
I mean, I would expect nothing less. When talking about Corey Perry, that people would make jokes about, you'll at least have a guaranteed trip to the Cup final. You're not going to win the Cup final, but you got a guaranteed trip to the Cup final.
All right, Kevin Weeks. I'm told the Flyers, Mammoth, Rangers, and Islanders are the favorites to land Russian forward Shabunov on a one-year NHL contract. Not sure who Shabunov is.
Might be
I apologize to them for that.
Might be a KHL player.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. So we got Corey Perry going to LA. We got a Russian player in getting a bidding war, and Darren Waller's a Miami Dolphin. Okay, did you know Brock Besser's 28 years old?
That sounds about right.
I thought he was a little bit older, but he got 7 by 7.25 with Vancouver. So he'll be a Canuck for life, probably.
Yeah, no, I would imagine that. I mean, that was the whole thing for me. Was like when Vancouver was talking about their future, it was, we got this Elias Pettersson guy, not the defenseman, and we did the forward before they got the defenseman Elias Pettersson. But we got Elias Pettersson, we got Brock Besser coming. Horvat was still on the team. They got this guy on defense, Jack. I almost said Jack Hughes. Quinn Hughes.
I just brought up Jack Hughes before.
Hughes in the league, man.
All right. Flyers. Breaking news. The Flyers have agreed to terms with goaltender Dan Vladar on a 2-year contract worth an AAV of 3.35. Interesting.
They're certainly being active.
They are.
I don't know. Do you like them?
Yeah, look, I don't hate it. Last year, he appeared in 30 games, 12, 11, and 6, 2.80. Save percentage under 900. Overall, 49, 34, and 16, 2.99 goals against, 895 save percentage. Look, I think it's fine. Philadelphia's not looking to make the playoffs this year anyway. So this is a decent stopgap. All right. I'm going to you on this one.
Okay.
If you're in the DC area. The Caps have announced they've signed defenseman Martin Ferravari to a 7-year, $42 million contract extension beginning 26-27.
Also, Frank Saravalli. Sources say Joel Armia will be joining the Kings.
Wow.
So Armia is heading out to LA as well.
I kind of low key like a bottom 6 with Armia and Corey Perry.
Yeah. As for and they know each other. I believe they played together in Montreal together when Perry was there.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Armia was on that team.
So 2 familiar faces to each other in LA. On Ferravari, I actually just got the email from Caps PR about it. So, yeah.
Shout out Caps PR.
Yeah, a lot of great people over there. Yeah, they were nothing but great to me when I was covering the Caps over there as a reporter, and a writer for them, covering them. Anyway, Ferravari, they locked him up. He's a good player for them. He's not a guy where you get a lot of offensive production necessarily, but he's a very good defensive talent. Very young guy, so they're locking him up long term here. Let me actually get the details. Let me check the email here that I got here for this move. So basically, he's 25 right now. He's signed through the 2032-33 season. It's a 7-year deal for $42 million total. And according to this is a quote from Chris Patrick in this press release here. Martin possesses all the core qualities of a Washington Capital. His skating ability, conditioning, and tireless competitiveness, combined with a team-first attitude and relentless drive to excel, make him a vital part of our blue line. Signing him to a long-term contract at just 25 years old is an exciting step for the future of our organization. Ferravari, who recently completed his 4th full NHL season, established single-season career highs in assists with 20, points with 25, and games played with 81 in 2024-25. He is 6'2", 203 pounds. So, again, when I covered the team last year and, and talking just about the depth, he's not an offensive guy. That's why they went, because, when you think of offensive production on the blue line before this past season, it was Carlson.
Yep.
But now, obviously, bringing in Chychrun and then locking him up to a long-term contract. I mean, once Carlson's retiring as a Cap, Chychrun will be the face of the blue line for years to come, and deservedly so. Hit 20 goals this year.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
So, with Ferravari, you're getting more of a defensive mindset guy, and he's going to be locked up long term now for them. So, he'll be in DC for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, they also have Rasmus Sandin on that blue line. So let's see what keeps going there. So the commissioner of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman, right now is on the Pat McAfee show. Shout out Pat McAfee.
There you go.
Talking about the new CBA, which they still have to agree to some things on. But it looks like we're getting an 84-game season. Okay. All right, Pierre LeBrun, this is on the Corey Perry deal. Perry, 1-year deal for Perry in LA. Salary plus bonuses total around $3.5 million.
Is this the weirdest jersey we're going to see him in?
I still think it's Montreal.
Right, but
it's this or Montreal. Those are the top two.
But the thing is that he was a Duck for so long.
Yeah.
And he had his
and
best
an Oiler. Let's not forget, he just eliminated them the last 2 years of the first round by being an Oiler.
Right. And it's weird that he definitely looked, I guess it was a little weird he was in Edmonton because that's still in the division. But LA is the weirdest one for me just because of where he was for so long. He won a cup for Anaheim with Getzlaf in 2007. So
that's true. I keep forgetting they were on that team because I just think it's Scotty Niedermayer and Chris Pronger.
That's great. The fact that Scott Niedermayer and Chris Pronger were on a blue line together for a team is just insane. And that was with a salary cap. It's absolutely crazy. They were able to make that work because guys like Getzlaf and Perry were so young.
Right. All right. Elliot Friedman. With free agency open, hearing New Jersey is making a strong pitch at Connor Brown.
Yeah, that's another name we haven't mentioned yet.
Another name off the Oilers.
Yep.
Pierre LeBrun, Vladislav Garakov has signed with the New York Rangers.
Wow, then the most shocking news of the day.
I'm gonna sit and I am going to wait and see how this term and money looks.
He got 7 years.
don't say things like that.
He was one of the top defensemen. Like, he was the top defenseman because Ekblad didn't make it to market.
It's true. Yeah, Chris Johnston at 7x7.
All right, initial thoughts as you're processing this information.
Honestly, because I believe that's below a Provorov guy. If I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check the Provorov. Provorov, I think, got 8. Yeah, Provorov got 7 by 8.5. Garikov at 7.7. I also don't know Vladislav Garikov's age. That is another thing in this that I have to look up. But
he's 30? I think he's 30, if I'm not mistaken, or he's close to 30. Also, one thing that
he'll be 30 in November.
Also, one thing to bring up with Corey Perry going to LA, he is reuniting with GM Ken Holland.
That's right. Kenny Holland's the new GM there. I also wonder about this with Corey Perry, then I'll get back into Garikov for a second. Corey Perry also played Team Canada, so he knows Drew Doughty fairly well. Also, all their battles together. So I kind of wonder if Doughty had any influence there.
Yeah, for sure.
So Pierre LeBrun said he thinks Garikov had richer offers, but he chose to go to the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the vibe that I got from Gavrikov was he's either going to stay in LA or he was going to the Rangers.
That was the big rumor.
Yeah.
So it's not that bad of a deal. So there's your new partner for Adam Fox,
which will be interesting.
Yeah, but I also think this is, Garikov's not a guy who's going to jump in on the play. I also wouldn't have minded seeing him playing with Andre Miller. Again, we're waiting on to see what happens there. Rangers also have to get Will Cooley back. He's a restricted free agent. So a lot of the Ranger beat reporters are saying the $7 million, while it's a lot, it's not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
It also makes the Ekblad money look real good. Gene Principe covers the Oilers for Sportsnet. Connor Brown, 4 years in Jersey.
Wow. Bruce Garriott of the, I believe it's the Ottawa Sun. The Sens have pursued rugged winger Tanner Jeannot, but it sounds like he has other options.
I actually don't hate that fit.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen, at least at this point.
No, but that's I like that. If Ottawa, if you're listening, and I know that you are, if you can't get Tanner Jeannot, I would make a hard run at Brandon Tanev. I think they're the same kind of player. Although the Leafs might make a run at. Oh, Jesus Christ. Elliot Friedman. Hearing the Rangers are working on sending K'Andre Miller to Carolina. Of all the places you could send him, you pick a division rival.
I'm curious what you're getting back.
Give me Logan Stankoven for the 8-year deal.
Yeah, that's not happening. I mean, look, do a sign and trade because then you'll get more back.
That's what I'm thinking. I gotta think. The guy I would like, if the Rangers are getting a defenseman back, I would take Jalen Chatfield. The Rangers aren't getting a defenseman back. I'm not sure where they go here.
I would imagine you're getting a defenseman back. It's probably a defenseman for defenseman, I would think. But
There'd be a signed Cam Newton jersey too.
You're getting rights to Brent Burns, and it's gone. The rights are gone.
No thanks. I don't. No offense to Brent Burns. Awesome beard. Don't need a 40-year-old defenseman. So we're in hearing season as we there's the Granlund stuff.
One thing I'll throw out there, it was mentioned by Elliot Friedman this morning, really early this morning. I guess I was sleeping, but I guess it was like 2 a.m. or something like that. I guess the Sabres were tied to Alex Lyon. That hasn't actually transpired yet, but I know that was talked about as like an actual option. So I mean, with Detroit the last couple of years, he had a short stint with Florida. Started off, I believe, with the Flyers, if I'm not mistaken. Alex Lyon.
Lyon was a Flyer. Yeah.
Yeah. Started out there. Then I think it was Philly, Florida, Detroit. Now it would be the Sabres if he does sign there. I'm guessing it would be like a 1-year deal if that happens.
Detroit's been one of those teams where they've rotated like 8 goalies, and now it's John Gibson.
I mean, I feel like Gibson's probably the best one that'll
work out. John Gibson might be the best goalie Detroit has had since Jimmy Howard. Jimmy Howard was a heck of a goalie. All right, here is the Pierre LeBrun, 2-year deal for Armia with the Kings. And Chris Johnston, Connor Brown, 4-year deal with the Devils, carrying a $3 million AEV. Connor Brown's going to replace Eric Halla, who was traded to Nashville. So that at least that's how I view it. So still waiting on what Elliot Friedman or whoever is going to get on this Keandre Miller deal.
If they're not getting a defense, I mean, is their thought process we're going to get rid of Miller for a forward because
they need a third line center
because they're bringing in Gavrikov. So it's basically, all right, Miller out, Gavrikov in.
I also think that means Carson Soucy is staying. Michael Russo, the Athletic. The Wild are closing in on bringing back Nico Sturm. Not the news I was expecting from the Wild just yet, but okay. Waiting for the Kaprizov extension. Bob McKenzie, Toronto closing in on forward Michael Pizzetta, former Canadian.
No way.
I thought Bob McKenzie retired. Welcome back.
He's part-time. So he doesn't really do anything during like because he used to do like draft boards and stuff. I don't know if he really does that anymore, but I think he always like he probably enjoys free agent frenzy every year. So that's like one of the big, he comes out of retirement, so he can do that.
Okay, Chris Johnson says the Hurricanes and Rangers finalized the Keandre Miller trade. The Hurricanes are working on an extension with the RFA. I need to see the return because right now I'm not okay trading within the division. Don't like it at all.
Yeah, you got to get something valuable for it.
And
if it's gonna hurt to trade someone valuable in the division, it's got to hurt for Carolina a little bit too.
yeah, it better hurt for Carolina. All right, Elliot Friedman, Tanner Jeannot, Boston Bruins, 5 by 3.4 million.
Wow, interesting.
You know what? He feels like a Bruin. He finishes every check.
Pierre LeBrun, 2-year deal for Pizzetta in Toronto, $775K for the first year, and then $800K for year 2.
That just feels like a depth guy.
Yeah.
Here's my thing on Tanner Jeannot, though. If I'm just gonna go back there, he's not gonna get much Tanner in Boston.
Way to go!
I don't think people get their tan on in Boston.
Here's another thing with Gavrikov and Provorov now off the board. This is when you can probably get some more stuff for Byram because Byram's probably the best option for a lot of people now that both of those guys are off the board.
All right, so somebody retweeted the Kessel trade. So I was about to say, oh, Phil Kessel's going back to Pittsburgh.
It's hard to believe that trade was 10 years ago.
I know.
And then we got one of the best lines in the HBK line with Kessel, Bonino, and Carl Hagelin.
By the way, shout out Nick Bonino, just retired as well.
Yeah, became an assistant coach
for the Penguins under Dan Muse.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember how. So Bonino was traded. That was Bonino for Brandon Sutter, I think. Sutter was sent from Pittsburgh to Vancouver.
Yeah, so Sutter was never the same player because he was always hurt too.
So Bonino went to the Penguins. Kessel was traded to the Penguins. Obviously, we talked about 10 years ago. And then Hagelin didn't work out. I think what was it with Anaheim? He went to Anaheim.
He got hurt.
It didn't really work out. So then he went to Pittsburgh, and then that line ended up, and that was the third line. That's like
Crosby and Malkin.
That's like a second line on some teams, and that was the third line there.
All right, Nico Stern back with the Wild. Looking for numbers, see if I can get numbers there. Non-hockey news, but just good news all around. This is from Yahoo Sports. ESPN expects Hall of Fame receiver Randy Moss to return to a full-time role on Sunday NFL Countdown for the 2025 season per The Athletic. He missed the last 2 months of last year due to a cancer diagnosis. So Randy Moss will be back on television.
Good to have him back. Good to have him back, and I'm glad he's doing better.
Yeah, so some positive spin on in here. All right, the set David Pagnotta, the Sens signed Nick Cousins, won by 825. Okay. Janot was in Tampa, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then he got moved.
Didn't they, was wasn't that the like
He
insane?
went to Nashville or he was in Nashville, and then Tampa traded a bunch of picks.
Yeah, and everyone was like, holy overpay for Janot.
Pierre LeBrun, 2 years at $2.5 million for Armia.
Gotcha. We're starting to get some action. We're starting to get some stuff going on. It was kind of quiet in the beginning.
You know what? The Besser thing feels like it started things off.
Yeah, it was just like
I wonder how many teams were in.
Yeah.
Because now we're starting to see. I'm starting to see like Tanner Janot, 3.4 to me doesn't bother me. The 5 years just feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see if we got anything else coming in.
I just remember a quick Sabres thing. I just remember last year because I had to work last year for free agency. So I remember like finding out certain things. Like I think the Sabres made a couple moves in the beginning of free agency, if I'm not mistaken. Like I know that they like there were rumors that they were signing my friend Dennis like right away. And I think that was announced kind of relatively quickly. I'm trying to remember when Zucker was announced. Because they Zucker, I think, was announced. Aubie Kubel was announced a year ago around this time, maybe like right when free agency started.
Yeah, so Aubie Kubel, he's a very useful player. He's been around.
Is he a free agent?
That,
I know the Sabres traded him to the Rangers.
He was there for about a minute or so.
And you just so many things are happening. We mentioned what the term was for Janot, right?
5 by 3.4.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure on that.
Yeah, I don't love the term. The money part doesn't bother me. 3-4.
Especially with the cap going up.
Yeah, but the 5 years to me, by the way, the Bruins hitting Janot and Arvidsson kind of tells you the direction they want to go in.
Right.
Not really skill. They want to work hard against you. That's kind of what it feels like.
I mean, I've recently heard that that conversation where it's like, well, if you can't outskill teams, like you know, try to outwork them. You know, that's be a hard team to play against instead of being like if you can't outskill them, because outskill can only get you so far. Where being like a hardworking team,
Well, and that's what the old Bruins were. I say the old Bruins. I mean, I'm talking, You know,
they're the old Bruins now. They're
15 years ago, Bergeron, Krejci, Marchand, Blake Wheeler.
Yeah.
When he was there, Chara. They won games 2-1, 3-2. They didn't win 5-4, 6-5.
Seeing if anything new is happening here.
You know, one thing we did not talk about yet. We didn't talk about some of the trades. Do you want to talk a little bit about the JJ Peterka deal?
Yeah, so Peterka goes to Utah, now known as the Mammoth. So
The Mammoth trade too.
So Peterka will be there for Utah during their first year as the Mammoth, and the Sabres get back defenseman Michael Kesselring, as well as Josh Doan, which is very interesting. I thought it was cool when Doan, ended up, playing and scoring goal, at least one goal. I don't know how many goals he got when he was in Arizona, but just, with the legacy that his dad had in Arizona, for Josh Doan to be able to also, play and score for Arizona, that was cool. And, he's a really promising player. I know he's considered a bottom six forward now. So he'll be bottom six, he's at least he's slotted in bottom six for the Sabres. He's part of this deal as well. So it was a 1-for-2 deal. Peterka goes to Utah. Sabres get back Doan and Kesselring. It goes to show you, the Sabres had, the biggest knock is that the Sabres didn't get enough. I don't think it seems that people had a problem with the players they got back. It's the fact that they didn't get more back too. Kesselring, I think, is the big part of this deal. Kesselring, the idea is, he might be a potential defensive partner for Owen Power. They've been looking for a right shot defenseman, and they were looking at trying to get someone either in the Peterka deal or in the Byram deal. If there was going to be a Byram deal, which right now there is not, but so Kesselring is a possibility that, maybe they'll slot him with Power when they when the season starts. Doan again will be, a third or fourth line guy for the Sabres on, for the forwards. Kesselring's got a great shot. He had 7 goals, I believe, last year. I mean, he's kind of developed. He's got a great shot. He's got good hands. He's a good skater. He's a tall guy, So, I mean, there's things to like with what he is on the blue line. I think someone even had a mock offseason where the Sabres got Kesselring in a trade. So, he was a guy to target. Again, you're trading Peterka, who's a guy who's very capable. He's been close the last couple seasons to being a 30-goal scorer. He'll probably hit that for sure because he's only going to get better, playing for Utah for the Mammoth. So I imagine he could very well hit 30 this upcoming year. So you're giving up a 30-goal scorer, and you're getting Kesselring, who's a good defenseman, and you're getting Doan, who's a solid bottom 6 forward, who also has a good shot. But, you didn't get enough in the deal. And that's where people, saying you're giving up a great young guy. He's so young. He was coming off his entry-level deal.
Was that the problem?
Actually,
was that the problem? He was coming off the entry level, and they would prefer to bridge him as opposed to a long-term deal?
Actually, was it his entry-level deal? Because he was drafted in 2020, unless it was... I have to look at that. I don't know if there was another bridge deal in there. I mean, the thing is that people thought, well, maybe he would want to go to a bigger market because, he's from Munich. So, like, would he want to go to a bigger city? But then you went to Salt Lake City, which, isn't the biggest, it's not a big city. So, like, that didn't really seem like that was the issue. So it's like, okay, well, it had to have been the losing, but also he wasn't really in Buffalo that long. In his first year, the team was good. Like, they were 1 point out. So, maybe he just didn't like the city. Maybe he didn't like where where things trended these last 2 seasons, where things didn't take a step. They didn't make the playoffs. Maybe he just wanted to change the scenery. Maybe he just didn't like Buffalo in general. But
maybe he's not a wing person. But back to your point on Josh Doan really quick. 5 goals and 9 points in 11 games for the Coyotes. And then last year, 7 goals and 19 points in 51 games for Utah.
Yeah. So, again, bottom 6 guy. Very young, too. So, who knows? I mean, there's still, a really good possibility of improvement there for sure. We'll have to see. I mean, for Kesselring and possibly for Doan, it's increased roles, on the team. Kesselring for sure. I mean, if he's going to be playing with Power, I mean, he's going to be with Dahlin or Power. I would imagine. I think the plan is to be with Power at this point. And obviously, I mean, there's other stuff. I mean, they made other moves too. They went and they traded Connor Clifton to the Pittsburgh Penguins on day 2 of the draft, and they got Connor Timmins, a defenseman who's been with both Toronto and Pittsburgh. Young guy as well. I think he's young. Either that or he's like 25. But Timmins, is another guy. I mean, he fits the guys that want to be here that Kevin Adams has been talking about, because Timmins, he's from Southern Ontario. He can literally see the arena from his house. So from where he's living in Ontario, so he can see Buffalo from his house. But Timmins grew up both a Sabres and a Bills fan. So that's another, guy who, he grew up a Sabres fan and a Bills fan and going to Bills games and stuff growing up. And, now he's going to put on the Sabre jerseys. So, we'll see what happens there. The Sabres announced some moves, like trading Lafferty to Chicago and stuff like that. We'll see if anything else happens. I imagine some other stuff is going to come down the pipeline here with them. I think they like to announce a lot of stuff at the same time. Like Ryan Johnson's extension was announced. For them, a big key, this is the first day where they can sign Alex Tuch to an extension.
Right. That's been
the big thing. Is he gonna re-sign? Or is he gonna want out? I've seen that's been a roller coaster ride, because it seems, is he gonna be back? He's got it, are they going to just let this year play out? Is Tuck's camp going to just let this play out and see how the team does? And, if they make the playoffs, okay, well, things seem like they're trending in the right direction. Alex does want to be here. Kevin Adams even said that like last week, that Tuck wants to be here. He would not say the same thing about Peterka before Peterka was traded. So, for him to go on record and say that Alex wants to be here, it makes it seem like it's probably trending that Tuck stays, but obviously anything could happen, and we don't have a deal in place yet. So,
yeah, that was the thing for me on the Peterka thing. It was just like, we're giving up a guy who's on the preface of being a 30-goal scorer. He's a young player.
Yeah.
And for the direction this team wants to go in, I kind of think you want that guy as part of the building blocks that you're trying to put together.
Yeah.
Because I think the Sabres have other questions. We still don't know goaltending. I know you're not sold on UPL. As much as Devin Levi showed, you got to give him the ball to run a little bit.
Well, and the thing was, is they want to do this UPL Levi thing. And like I mean, they were. I don't know if they're going to push for that again. We got to see if this Alex Lyon signing actually happens. But like the thing is like with Levi is like they were going to go. Oh, the plan is Luukkonen and Levi, but then they like got Reimer because they're like, okay, well, we need a vet because just in case Levi just doesn't show that he can be at least the backup here. And then Levi does really well in Rochester. And, for the most part, I know that his play was questionable in the playoffs for the Amerks, but, so it's like, do we want to run UPL and Levi again? I mean, we
And
can.
I know you're not sold on UPL.
Well, yeah, and the team shouldn't be sold on that either, and they weren't. That's why they brought Reimer in. But it's just like, the one thing the Sabres have not done, the one thing they have not done during this drought is sign a goalie long term or trade for a big name goalie. They have not gone after the big fish goalie. That's the one thing they have not done. To my knowledge, that doesn't mean,
Right. They were never in on the Ben Bishops.
Yeah.
Well,
I can remember when Jacob Markstrom was signed as a free agent. I think it was with Calgary, and I'm like, where were you on? Where you should have been in on this, and maybe they were, and we just never knew. But, obviously they didn't work out. But now it seems like things are a little quiet.
Things have gone back to silence. But no, I think you're right. Look, Ryan Miller was the last great Sabre goalie.
Yep.
When was Ryan Miller? When did he leave for Vancouver?
Well, he was traded to the Blues.
Oh, he was traded to the Blues. Then he went to Vancouver.
Yeah, that was when we got Yaroslav Halak back in the deal, and then he was like a backup goalie.
Yaroslav Halak, I think, played for every team in the league.
That deal was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Halak, Chris Stewart, and I think there was another piece to that deal. Let me look because I'm curious now. On February 28th, 2014, Ryan Miller and forward Steve Ott were traded from the Sabres to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for Yaroslav Halak, Chris Stewart, William Carrier, and 2 future draft picks. William Carrier was the name that I was... Vegas Golden Knight legend, William Carrier.
Flyers. We've agreed to terms with defenseman Noah Jules, so that was brought up earlier, and your buddy Dennis Gilbert on a 1-year deal.
Really? All right.
Worth $875,000.
I mean, Dennis fits the Flyer mold. Elliot Friedman, Ryan Lindgren.
Whoa.
4 years, $4.5 million in Seattle.
Okay.
And Frank Saravalli, sources say the Montreal Canadiens have signed goalie Capo Kakkonen.
I don't think that's a big improvement, but okay. That's not the guy I would have pegged for Montreal, but all right, Capo Kakkonen. But Ryan, remember the big move Seattle made last year, July 1? Brandon Montour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Montour didn't have a great year, had some injuries. So I wonder if they're going to pair Lindgren up with Montour.
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting pairing.
Seattle, I thought, was one of the bigger disappointments last year. And they've already Lane Lambert, the new coach, after 1 year of Dan Bilesma. I'm a little surprised they didn't buy out Philip Grubauer. That's been one of the things for me. But Ryan Lindgren, all right.
Really interesting with Dennis going to the Flyers because I mean I don't know when we were in school whether he was a Briere guy or not or more of like a Drury guy. I don't remember talking to him about that when the Sabres had both of them because you had your Briere guys and your Drury guys, and then there were some people that were Miller guys back during that time period. But that's cool. I mean I was a Briere guy growing up, but just having my friend sign and Briere being the GM to sign him is just really that's interesting. So that's
Yeah.
kind of cool in a way. That's really interesting. So good for him. Good for he fits the Flyer mold so well because he's one of the last people in the league who still fights.
He's physical. Yeah.
He's physical. He's not afraid to drop the gloves. So good for them all around. That's some nice Broad Street bully depth for them.
I mean, Ryan Lindgren to Seattle. That is it's a good move.
Yeah.
Solid move for Seattle. As we are. You brought up before that Marner is wearing 93.
Yep. Just as he was when he was a knight for London, Ontario, not England.
Changing of the guard.
One move that I think we didn't talk about yet that happened yesterday was Romanov re-signing with the Islanders.
Romanov, yep, re-up with the Islanders.
I know there was talk about whether or not he was going to stay or whether he possibly was going to move out. I think.
I'm curious about the Islanders because they brought back Romanov. They brought back Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah.
Who played well for them when he came back from Russia. I'm kind of curious on where they're going to put Matthew Shea for the number one pick in all of this. But they don't have Brock Nelson anymore.
Mammoth have signed Kailer Yamamoto to a 1-year, 2-way contract.
Okay, there's a nice little piece. Not the Mammoth deal. But the Mammoth have been expected to do a lot. They did the Paterka move. They haven't done really much else. Kevin Weeks. The Islanders are signing David Riddick.
Okay.
What does that mean for Semyon Varlamov?
He's done. I mean, do we think he signs anywhere? Here's the thing. I think he'll play hockey, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the KHL.
Yeah, he might want to go back.
But I mean, he's older. I mean, he was playing for the Caps in like 2007 or 2008.
Here's the real problem I have with this. If something were to happen to Ilya Sorokin, I wanted Patrick Waugh to play in goal.
Well, I
would he have pulled himself from a game?
Patrick Waugh just puts the pads on. That's it. I'm going in there.
I'm so angry at the way you guys are defending. You better block shots for me. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. And then, like we mentioned briefly about Kakinen going to Montreal. That's interesting too. I mean, one thing we didn't talk about was Caden Primo getting traded to Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina's got like 6 goalies.
They like to carry a lot of goalies.
Well, we do know that Freddie Anderson does have an injury history. He's back.
Right. I mean, but that
They have Kachetkov.
Yeah, Ranta. Well, before
I
he
believe
retired.
Ronta's a free agent.
Well, Ranta retired, I think, didn't
Oh,
he?
he may have retired.
Yeah, that was last year. But I'm more talking like to have 3 all the
now they
time.
bring in Primo. They also signed a Russian goalie.
Yeah.
So I you never have too much goaltending, but all right, the Blues are signing Nick Bjugstad 2-year deal with a 1.75 AAV.
Wow. Nice. This is a nice depth. That's a nice depth signing. I'm curious if they're still in on Granlund. I mean, I know, like, not that. I mean, Granlund is the better. I don't.
Granlund
might be going somewhere else.
Well, he's gonna make more also. Ryan Rishag from TSN. Late July, early August wouldn't surprise me for the timing of a McDavid extension. Thinks 4 years. I'm going to sit here and say this about Connor McDavid because there's a lot of guys who can sign extensions right now. If I'm Connor McDavid, I'm not saying this just because I'd love to have him on my team because every team would love to have Connor McDavid on their team. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait this thing out.
Yeah.
I'm going to make Stan Bowman get me a legitimate number 1 goalie. Let's see how this team looks before I decide to stay here in Edmonton for the next 5-6 years. Loyalty's great. I love loyalty in sports. But if you want to be up in the grades compared to the Sidney Crosbys or the Wayne Gretzkys, you have to win.
Right. Well, that's the thing. They're a good team to make it to the Cup final in the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Are they good enough to get over that hump after? Florida's beaten them twice now in the Cup final. Not that, and getting to the Cup final is hard to do. You've done it twice and you've walked away with nothing.
And by the way, let's be honest. The Western Conference, we talked about it earlier, it's not a cakewalk. You can't be guaranteed you're going there for a 3rd straight year. Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg. The LA Kings just brought in the secret weapon of getting to the Cup final, Corey Perry, for Pete's sake. So the Western Conference is not easy. Parker Wotherspoon is going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Irfan Gaffar had that one.
Gotcha.
I believe former Bruin defenseman. So little things are starting to pick up here, guys.
Yep. Yep.
And as we were told earlier, does not look like Nikolai Ehlers is going to sign today.
Yeah, Ehlers is going to wait this out. And we'll see what else happens. Some names still out there. Let me go back to the list that I had here. Okay, so Ehlers, obviously, as we just mentioned, not planning to make his decision today. Michael Granlund's still out there, has not signed anywhere yet. Besser is off the list now. He's going back to Vancouver. Dadnov, we haven't really heard anything about, which is interesting. Roslovic, haven't heard anything. Druin, haven't heard anything. Nyquist, haven't heard anything. Armia is off the board. Majapani, we haven't heard anything. Pius Suter is interesting. I know Vancouver was trying to bring him back. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not.
There's been a lot of teams covered the Pius Suter.
Yeah. Is it Pius or Pew?
I've called him Pew because I just think of pew, pew, pew.
Yeah. Connor Brown, obviously in New Jersey. Robbie Fabry.
Robbie Fabry's a good name, but he's just never healthy.
Yeah. Eller's still out there. Skinner's still out there. Dvorak, obviously, going to Philly. Mason Appleton is still out there. Mantha's still out there. Sturm is back with the Wild. Bastion, we haven't heard anything. Jeannot, obviously, with the Bruins. Brandon Tanev still out there. Athanasiou has not signed anywhere yet. Cam Atkinson is. We'll see where he goes.
How much do you think a guy like Cam Atkinson has left?
I don't know.
But like to me, he's only going to go to a cup contender.
Right. In like a depth role.
And a depth role. Like he's not the 30-goal scorer he used to be. And that's not a knock on Cam Atkinson. At one time, he was one of the most underappreciated players in the game.
Right. Orlov is still out there. Perbix is out there. Gavrikov, obviously, to the Rangers. Burns is still out there. I would just retire. Like, I mean,
he wants to win.
So he might sign with a contender on like a 1
year. He might re-up with Carolina for one more year.
Yeah. Nate Schmidt will be interesting where he goes. He's a top name in this. Dumoulin, Grzelcyk, CC, Lindgren's obviously off the board. What does TJ Brody do?
TJ Brody. Listen, if the Rangers didn't get Gavrikov, I thought about that as a shorter-term option.
Yeah.
You know what? Alex Pietrangelo, like we mentioned at the top, stepping away. Maybe TJ Brody goes to a place like Vegas, and you elevate someone else. Darren Drager. Things are percolating around Sabres, Demon, Bow, and Byram. Trade conversations are happening with Calgary, Vegas, LA, St. Louis among those interested. Also hearing an offer sheet on Byram is being contemplated. Didn't they just do a sign-and trade off of that?
I was to say, I would just try to do a sign-and trade. I mean, because the thing is that if the Sabres just want to keep them, like, they just match the offer sheet.
Yeah.
Here's one thing I would do, too. I would talk to Zane and be like, look, if you sign an offer sheet, I would just be fully honest with him. If you sign an offer sheet, we are probably going to match. But we're
going to make you miserable.
We will know, but I would say, look, we will match, but we will do what we can to get you out of here. But we want your cooperation with this because we want to make this work for both sides.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think this has to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight. You want a bigger role. We want to get something good out of this. I don't think it's got to be. There's no reason this has to be ugly. There is no reason this has to be ugly. And I don't think the Sabres want to make it ugly either. Because here's the thing. They had the opportunity to make it ugly with Peterka, and they chose not to do that. Not right. That I'm saying they should have. That's a whole debate. And it doesn't matter with Peterka anymore because he's in Utah. But, like, you know, I don't think it's got to be ugly with Byram. He's got nothing against the team. He's got nothing against the city. He's got nothing against any of this. He just wants a bigger role somewhere else. It's nothing personal. So just figure it out. And here's the thing. I think more than likely, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Byram deal by the end of today or by the end of tomorrow, because now that Gavrikov and Provorov are gone, he's the best available option.
And K. Miller's off the board too, it looks like.
Yeah. So he's...
So let me ask you this. Actually, Apparently, Rasmus Anderson has only told the Calgary he would extend with Vegas. So I was going to say, what if you did a
That
Byron
must be that
Anderson?
must be nice to just you're not even with Vegas and you're just like I'm only signing there, so you better figure it out.
So this is from Emily Kaplan, ESPN. As free agency carries on, all eyes on Nikolai Ehlers. Believes the Canes, Capitals, and Tampa Bay Lightning are amongst teams in on him. He's doing his due diligence today. If Nikolai Ehlers goes to Tampa,
Yeah,
we're gonna need a real conversation.
Ehlers to DC would be interesting too. Per Puckpedia, the Isles have signed 28-year-old UFA right defenseman Ethan Bear to a 1-year contract worth $775K.
Okay, that's probably your seventh D man, Ethan Bear. Uh, I'll say this for Matthew Darsh, his first off season, done a nice job.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But now the pressure's going to go to some of those players. But I think the guy under the most pressure for the Islanders going into next year will be Matt Barzal.
Well, Pierre LeBrun doing the eyes emoji in reference.
I gotta tell you, I'm not fond of the insiders retweeting each other with eyes emojis. Like, let us know if something's going down or not.
Drager. This was Drager saying about the Byram thing. Trade conversations are happening with Calgary, Vegas, LA, St. Louis among those interested. And then the eyes emoji for LeBrun. Now, my whole thing is the eyes emoji here for this post here. Is that for the trade or is that for the offer sheet?
I'm thinking it's about the offer sheet, or it could be the whole situation. Let's be honest about that.
Here's the thing with the offer sheet thing. The Sabres have cap space. And they were willing to throw like $9 million for Dobson, probably. So they'll do this for Byram and be like, all right, we still want something for him.
That's why the sign and trade has to be the way I would go if it's going to happen.
It's too bad you can't do Byram in some way to get Anderson, because the thing with Anderson is like, well, here's the thing, even with, because I think Anderson only has like a 6-team no trade list. I miss the days when the Pagulas were like, we're not taking no for an answer, and they like flew out to like talk to Robin Regeer about coming to play for the Sabres, and then it worked. Why aren't you putting that same kind of effort into like Rasmus Anderson or something like that? Granted, you also made moves at right shot defenseman already too, but I'd argue you still, if Byram's going out the door, you still need a partner for Dahlin. Yeah. So, especially if Kesselring's going to be Powers.
Do they have anyone who could be coming from Rochester who could get that opportunity?
And Johnson's going to be probably I don't know if Johnson's ever played with Dahlin. I don't know if they would want to do that. LA is interesting. I wonder what you would get from LA.
One of Drew Doughty's teeth.
Would they try it for Byfield?
They're not moving Byfield.
Yeah, I didn't think.
Maybe Lafreniere, the Lafreniere guy who's not Lafreniere.
The Lafreniere that's not Lafreniere.
You know where I'm going.
Lewis is involved. Can I get a Jordan Kyrou trade? I am asking once again to get a Jordan Kyrou deal. David Pagnotta, keep an eye on the Penguins and free agent Anthony Mantha. Sounds like they're working on a deal.
Low key, I like that. I like that move. I think Mantha got off to a great start for Calgary, and then he just got hurt.
How was Farabee for Calgary?
I think he was okay.
Because there you go. That's the Farabee gets closer to home. If maybe Farabee and Calgary don't want to be together long.
Yeah, that's very possible.
You get Farabee back in a. I mean, I wanted Farabee when he was with Philly.
I'll say this: I don't think Calgary's trading you Dustin Wolf.
Huh?
I don't think Calgary's trading you Dustin Wolf.
I mean, I don't think the Sabres are going to want Wolf back, but not that they.
He was great. All right, Provorov's deal is official. Really makes the Garakov signing look good. My opinion.
The Mammoth have signed Scott Perunovich to a 1 year.
He's a depth defenseman.
He was with the Islanders. Now he's going to the Mammoth.
He was with the Blues too, I believe.
Mike Harrington with the Buffalo News. So Darren Dreger just said on TSN that Byram might be a candidate for an offer sheet, but said trade talks with the Sabres also remains heavy with Calgary, LA, St. Louis, and Vegas. I'm trying to figure what if you're the Sabres, put yourself in Kevin Adams' shoes for a second, and let's say
you're talking to the wrong guy in this.
Let's say it's Calgary, LA, St. Louis, and Vegas.
Okay,
and you're trying to get a Byram deal done. What are you trying to get back? Like if it's St. Louis, are you trying to get Kyrou out of this?
I would love to get Kyrou out of this if I could.
Because with Vegas, who are you getting out from Vegas? I wouldn't be trying to trade with Vegas.
Can I give you the one name that I just really thought of?
Is it a serious name, or are you going to say Eichel?
No, it's a serious name. It's actually Zach Whitecloud.
Okay, I mean that's definitely.
I'm thinking here. If you're moving off of a defenseman, you're going to get a defenseman in return. And you also got to remember, I don't know Vegas's farm system, so I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, you can get this prospect guy."
So maybe you get like Whitecloud, Dahlin, Power, Kesselring,
right? And maybe it's Whitecloud and a draft pick based on Byram's extension. Excuse me.
I remember. I think Saravelli was like, "Oh." Byram's gonna. This was before Haig was traded to Nashville, which we did not talk about yet. But I remember Saravelli being like, "Oh, Haig alone can't go for Byram. It would have to be like Haig plus." And then he goes to Nashville anyway.
All right, Penguin deal looks like it's done
for Mantha.
Elliot Friedman hearing Jordan Harris, who was not qualified in Columbus, heading to Boston, played his college hockey at Northeastern.
Chad D. Dominicis, pure guess, but the Byram offer sheet stuff is probably one team threatening to squeeze the Sabres into trading with them. Smart leverage pull if so.
Vince Mercogliano, Rangers beat writer. Sounds like the Kendry Miller trade will center on draft pick compensation, according to a source. Carolina holds 2 first-round picks next year, with the NYR eyeing one of them. So Kendry Miller for a first in 26, where it's supposed to be a better draft class. I don't love it, but I'll accept it.
I wonder if that's why the Sabres have been kind of silent. I wonder if they're just trying to hammer a Byram deal out.
And they're probably trying to handle Tuck at the same time.
Yeah. Because I would not be surprised if a Tuck announcement comes today. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I I wonder if Tuck is they've said multiple times he's a priority to get done. So I wonder if that news comes later today. And they like to announce everything at once, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's, oh look, Tuck re-signed, and oh look, Byram's gone.
Sorry, guys. We have to announce everything at once. Capo Kakinen, that deal with Montreal, 1 year, 1.15
Yep.
billion.
All right. I am going to step away real quickly again. I will be back shortly.
All right, guys.
We can carry on with this free agency coverage a little longer. I will be back momentarily.
All right. Let's roll. As we continue waiting on more news. Yeah, nothing big. We're still waiting on Nick Ehlers, which we've been told might not happen today. That might wait a little bit longer. As Emily Kaplan reported earlier, Carolina, Washington, Tampa seem to be in that mix. I'm also going to say Winnipeg is not out of it by any means necessary. I got to tell you, unless Carolina's throwing the bag at you, if you're Nick Ehlers, unless Carolina's throwing a real bag, I kind of like it in Winnipeg. And if you're Winnipeg, the question is going to be, how do you pivot off of Ehlers? They did bring in Jonathan Toews. We don't know what his numbers are going to look like because you can't sit here and guarantee he's going to put up what he did in Chicago. Just can't do that. So the other thing Winnipeg's got to start thinking about is Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor's free agent after this season, so they're going to have to get that done. Because if he goes to market, Kyle Connor, we know he's going to have a huge mark. He's one of the premier goal scorers in the league. But you still got Scheifele. You still got Connor Hellebuck. Josh Morrissey, who I'll be honest with you, I think the Morrissey injuries hampered him throughout the playoffs. So let's see what we got. The Canadiens, again, talking about Capo Kakinen, they are also bringing in Sammy Blais, former Blue, former Ranger, former Vancouver Canuck, bottom 6, brings some speed and energy. So there's the Canadiens again. Yep, Sammy Blais, this is from Chris Johnston. 1 year, $775,000 with the Montreal Canadiens. Still think Montreal could do something big here. I know they've been looking for a number 2 centerman. John Tavares, I heard, wasn't in a guy that piqued their interest. That did not happen. Still waiting on a move there. Tavares to re-up with the Leafs. So Montreal doing a lot of little things. And by the way, I'm not criticizing it at all. I think Ken Hughes has done an outstanding job, as has Marty St. Louis. I think Montreal has to if there's nothing out there, or if you don't like anything out there, you could hold the money. No one's gonna sit there and yell at you for that if you don't like what's out there. And let's be real honest here. This isn't a great free agency class. Next year's has the potential to be a lot deeper, led by Connor McDavid, potentially. And if you're the Montreal Canadiens, why wouldn't you? The Flyers, we've agreed to terms with center Lane Pedersen on a 1-year, 2-way contract worth $775K. And the Florida Panthers have done it again. Thomas Nosek gets a 1-year extension. Let's see if they have it. They didn't announce the money, but it's a 1-year extension for Nosek. This is from Bill Zito. Quote, Thomas is a stalwart centerman whose strong two-way play served in an important role in our championship run this season. We are excited for Tomas and his family to remain with our organization for the upcoming season. Nosek 32. Oh, by the way, close quote. Nosek 32 skated in 59 regular season games with the Panthers, 9 points, 1 goal, 8 assists, and a +4 ratings. At the Stanley Cup playoffs, Nosek played in 16 games, posted 3 points, all 3 assists. So, Florida legitimately running it back. You got to respect them. Okay. The Utah Mammoth brought up Brandon Tanev earlier. 3 by 2.5. So, $2.5 million AAV over 3 years. Utah and Brandon Tanev. I like it. Like it a lot. Look, I still think Utah can use some help up top. And we're going to see what they're goaltending wise, but Tanev and Peterka. That's a pretty nice little run here for Utah. So not a mammoth deal, but a guy who can kill penalties, brings energy, fourth line player. Him and Yamamoto, that has a very interesting both. I'm not sure if they played together in Seattle, but they both played for the Kraken. So that has a very interesting. That could be a very interesting penalty killing duo, Yamamoto and Tanev. So again, Brandon Tanev.
I am back.
All right. Brandon Tanev to Utah, 3 years, 2.5 AAV.
Nice.
I like it. And Sammy Blais went to Montreal 1 year, 775,000.
Oh, interesting.
Ranger legend. Will not tell you who he was traded for because that still breaks people's hearts.
Yeah.
And Thomas Nosek re-upped with the Panthers on a 1-year deal.
Right. I think that was announced actually before, or that was rumored to being completed before free agency started.
I'm going to presume they got no room to do anything else. Watch, they're going to bring back Nate Schmidt for league minimum.
Taking a look here.
All right, this isn't go ahead.
I was going to say, Chris Johnston, feeling is the sweet spot on this when it comes to like a Byram thing falls at the 7 million. It's like 7 million, about it's like a little over 7 million mark on the scale. If deal comes in under that, the compensation would be a first and third rounder. Danger in matching is that you'd be walking Byram straight to UFA next summer while losing the ability to trade him.
Wow. So interesting development. This is from Tom Galitti, former Caps player. This is not a signing. Former Caps player and 2018 Cup winner Alex Chason will be a guest coach at development camp. Was he not on Dallas at one point, Alex Chason, or am I wrong?
That sounds right. He won a cup with the Caps.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Puckpedia apparently has Byram as an RFA next year. So there's something inconsistent there. So if you want, so that's someone's either right or wrong here. So he's either a UFA next year or he's an RFA next year. I originally thought he was an RFA next year. He's got
I think what he's saying is if they match the offer sheet, his status will change.
Oh, so he would be like a UFA next.
He'd become a UFA.
Okay,
because you've already matched the rights.
Because they were saying, because it seemed like there was the idea that it would take a 3-year offer sheet to walk Byram to UFA. Okay, I'm sure that there'll be more explanation here.
There has to be. I still think it's a sign and trade.
Oh, I would imagine that. I mean, here's the thing: is that I know teams are going to try to take the Byram leverage away from the Sabres, but the Sabres have the leverage. They've got teams literally bidding for him. Give us a good offer, St. Louis. Give us Jordan Kyrou,
or make something bigger so you can land Kyrou. Although now Kyrou's got his no trade kicked in, but
yeah, so they really should have. So it's Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News. I don't believe the TSN discussion was correct. Byram is not going to be a UFA until after the 2026-27 season, not after next season. So he's an RFA for this year and next year, next summer, and then the summer afterwards, you would be a UFA. So, yeah, there's a lot of people saying there's a lot of the Joe DiBiase, who's with WGR Buffalo Sports Radio. Byram has 2 years before he can become a UFA. So this would have to be. You couldn't do like a 1-year thing.
So, Darren Dreger, I'm only saying this for the name. Ollie Licksell to Ottawa.
Who?
OLLELYCKSELL. Ollie Licksell.
Huh. His name does sound familiar.
1 year, 775. Oh, I'm assuming that's incentive. Guarantee of 500K, it looks like. But, okay. The name is what got me.
Yeah. Seeing here. Rick Dhaliwal, I don't know if you mentioned that the Blaze deal with Montreal is one way.
Oh, it is one way.
It's one way, yeah.
Okay. All right. David Pagnotta, fourth period. The Kings still have over $17 million in cap space after adding Perry and Armia so far today. They're exploring the trade market for a top 4D and may also be shopping the likes of Alex Turcotte and Thomas. I don't know who Thomas is. I know Alex Turcotte. I'm not sure if Thomas.
Nick Alberga. I know you mentioned this idea too. I think Edmonton should go after UPL.
I think Edmonton needs to figure out what the hell they're doing.
You mentioned the Luukkonen idea with Edmonton, right?
I've mentioned a lot of ideas for Edmonton. to playing goal. I'd bring Grant Fuhr out of retirement if I'm being honest with you.
Did we have the Bugstad return?
It was 2 years at 1.5, I believe.
A 1.75.
I was close, guys. I was close.
What are you doing? You're making us look bad. Nice. Yeah.
I try so hard.
Someone goes, if you get a first and a third offer sheet on Byram, you take it and move on. Use the first in a trade.
You know who I'm a little surprised still out there? I know he could be picky. Lars Eller. I still think that is an effective player.
Yeah.
I still like the fit with the Rangers. He played for Mike Sullivan, and I feel like he's been in the Metro for a long time with Washington and Pittsburgh. So that'd be the guy. Although you want a little bit more offense out of it, but Dylan Coughlin going back to Vegas on a 1-year, one-way deal per Irfan Gaffar, and Elliot Friedman has it at $775K.
Byram for Eichel.
I'm not sure if Jack's signing the extension you guys want.
Yeah. I also think he has a no trade clause, so he probably would just be like, no, I'm good.
Did they fire Kevin Adams yet? No. All right, I ain't going.
Also, I want to say right now that I was prepared. I'm prepared for disappointment because I root for the Sabres. But I have a hockey shirt on, and you have the Miami Dolphins. I mean, granted, you're celebrating the trades that happened yesterday with Pittsburgh, but you also you got Waller back. It's your. So I guess you wore that shirt and put that into existence.
Darren Waller was the first thing that came to my mind when I put this on this morning. I was like, we're getting Darren Waller, baby.
Out of retirement.
Out of retirement. Out of sight, out of mind. Oh. Oh, there's your Chris Johnston tweet from earlier. Oh, so Vladimir Tarasenko meeting with the media in Minnesota. Remember, he got traded there by Detroit for future considerations.
That's a really interesting. I'm curious how he does with Kaprizov.
This is what he said.
Yeah.
This is via Michael Russo. Vladimir Tarasenko said he talked to Kirill Kaprizov a couple of times yesterday, and after talking to him, decided the Wild was a spot to waive his no trade for. Wanted that change, knows he has to earn a top 6 role, but believes he could get back to being the same old Vladdy. Gotta tell you, I would have taken a chance on Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely. I feel like the risk was not as
worth the reward.
Yeah, exactly.
He is a pure goal scorer. You don't just lose that.
That pairing of him with the Wild could really work out.
Yeah, that's what they need. They need guys who could score some goals.
I thought you were going to say that pairing would be wild. That
Would be pretty wild.
I was waiting for that.
Listen, listen. The Russians are going to run wild. I mean, it's pretty wild who's going to play center on that line between the two of them. But I don't know if
Right.
you put Eric Sidek there.
They're an interest. They're going to be an interesting team to look at to watch this upcoming season.
No more Fleury. So who's going to help ride the Gus bus?
Yeah,
that's going to be a big question. But they also have one of the best young blue liners in the game in Brock Faber.
Yeah, for sure.
You
got a lot of pieces to like over there in Minnesota. I know they're not always talked about. Like, they're not like the most talked about team, but like they do have a lot to like over there.
They really do. And they played very well for John Hines last year. I almost said Dean Evanson.
Huh?
I almost called John Hines Dean Evanson.
Yeah.
Now, the Red Wings have signed Ian Mitchell to a 1-year contract worth $775,000.
What was that?
The Red Wings have signed Ian Mitchell.
Oh, depth move.
Depth move. A lot of depth moves. Nothing major in a bit. All right, this isn't a sign. This is just a note from NHL Public Relations. Brock Besser re-signed with the Canucks on a 7-year deal. He has the most goals and the third highest point total, 434 points, 204 goals, by any Vancouver player since he made his debut in 2016-17.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought Pettersson might have had him on points.
Now it seems like we've got another little break again.
We got a little bit of a break. The one team I'm a little surprised been quiet. They made the one move, Lafferty. I thought the Blackhawks would do a little bit more here.
Yeah.
Now, again, I said this while you stepped away. With Montreal, if the fit's not out there, you don't spend the money. Just hold on to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously just to kind of review some other stuff that's been going on. We got Corey Perry going to LA. We got Brock Besser shocking the hockey world by going back to Vancouver. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be going to the Wild or maybe like the Bruins, as Mike mentioned. Just kind of doing a quick review of everything. Obviously, talking about Besser and all that. Marner obviously was the sign and trade yesterday. That was the big thing. Florida managing to get all their big name players re-signed before the market. We're on continued Bo Byram watch, which we didn't know if he was going to get traded, before or during the draft. Now it's we'll see. I mean, with guys like Gavrikov, who went to the Rangers, and Provorov staying in Columbus, Byram's the big name player that could be moved to destination. So,
yeah, as we've hit a little bit of a lull here. We've talked about Besser, I think, ad nauseum, but
yeah.
That's the shock for me.
Right.
But is there a team, like I just mentioned, I'm a little surprised Chicago hasn't done much. Is there a team for you that you're looking at and going, man, I thought they'd be maybe a little bit more active today? Albeit, hey, we all know the market is what it is.
To be a little bit more active. I'm not sure. Is there one for you?
Well, I brought up Chicago as one.
Right, Chicago.
Chicago's one for me. And the other one, I'm kind of surprised they haven't done as much. Now, they're banking on guys returning to form. I'm a little surprised by the Preds. I know last year on July 1st, they spent a ton.
Yeah. I mean, they make the trade with Vegas for Hague. Is it Hague or
Hague?
And so, we talked about, Sissons and Lawson, are going to Vegas. Yeah, so Hague is the big move that they got.
Yeah. So they're banking on guys returning to form next year. So the guy in the Dylan Cousins deal, Jacob Bernard Docker.
Yeah.
1 year, $875,000 the Detroit Red Wings.
All right, so he does not. People were wondering about whether or not, whether that, because the Sabres didn't tender him, whether, I know Buffalo Radio talked about today. Reporter Paul Hamilton mentioned that might have been a Lindy decision to not have Bernard Docker back. I would have thought he would have been tendered, but I guess they felt that they didn't want to see more out of him.
Elliot Friedman, Buffalo Sabres news.
Okay.
Mason Geertsen.
Who?
Mason Geertsen. I have to look up who this is. I apologize, everybody, but Mason Geertsen for 2 years. Oh, it looks like he's a minor league player.
Yeah. So was he with the Sharks?
He played last year for the Henderson Silver Knights. In 31 games, he had 5 assists. So last year, he had 5 assists. 2 years ago, in 2023-24, 58 games, he had 6 goals, 0 assists. Does have some NHL experience. Played 25 games for the Devils.
Tony Androkaitis. Hearing Buffalo is working on some two-way depth deals for AHL Rochester. Sounds like right-handed defenseman Zach Metza, our number 7 ranked UFAD on the AHL's big board, is returning to the Sabres organization. I also think they're adding right winger Carson Meyer, who had 9 goals, 12 assists in 29 games played with San Diego last season.
Carolina has signed goaltender Amir Miftakov from the KHL. He played with AK Bars Kazan. The deal pay him $775,000 on the NHL level.
Mark Scheig,
25 years old, Miftakov.
Former Columbus Blue Jackets Sean Corrali is signing with the Bruins.
Did he start there?
Yeah, per Anthony DeMarco. How do you pronounce his name? Isamont?
Mikey Esamont?
He's signing with the Bruins 2 years, $1.45 million.
Former Lightning legend.
They're signing a lot of guys. So Anthony DeMarco is saying that the Bruins have signed Arvidsson, Isamont, Corrali, Blumel, and Steves. So,
and don't forget Tanner Jeannot.
I think he didn't include Jeannot in there just because. But
so Corrali and Jeannot might be 2/3 of a fourth line.
Yep.
Well, weird day for the Bruins.
I mean, they're definitely signing guys.
Yeah.
But it's it's whether or not that the moves are going to work. We'll have to obviously when the season starts.
All this for Marco Sturm. So, okay, there's the Elliot Friedman 2x 1.85 on Corrali. Not a lot of term thrown out today.
Yeah.
Besser and Garikov, and that's really been it. On Tanner Jeannot.
Did we say the term for Bernard Docker?
1 for 775 or something.
875. All right.
Okay, so on Garikov, there's no full move years 1 through 5.
Gotcha.
So there is a big belief there. Oh, Nate Schmidt going to Utah.
Okay, that's a nice fit.
3-year deal. Yeah, holy Schmidt. I didn't know if anyone was going to give him term, but David Pagnotta, Pontus Holberg is weighing options. He wasn't qualified by the Leafs, making him a UFA, but the Leafs do remain in the mix for him.
Frank Saravelli, sources say Detroit Red Wings are signing veteran forward James Van Riemsdyk.
Oh, wait. Didn't they try to trade for him a couple of years ago, and they got nicked because it was going to happen after the deadline? Chris Johnston, Nate Schmidt, 3-year deal with Utah carries a $3.5 million AAV. That's not bad.
Flyers announced half an hour ago officially we have agreed to terms with center Lane Pedersen on a 1-year 2-way contract worth $775K. I don't know if that was talked about on here. I just saw that.
All right, so JVR 1x1 million, Detroit,
and he plays yet another season. He's been playing in the league since 2007. He's getting close to hitting that 20-year career.
Listen, everyone could use some net front.
We said term for Tanev, right? Or for the money.
Yeah, it's 3-year deal, 2.5 per AAV.
Right.
So I got to tell you, it was slow at the beginning, but Utah picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, you got to factor Paterka in there. You get Paterka, you get Schmidt,
Paterka, Schmidt, Tanev.
Tanev. They're doing pretty well over there. And I mean, they got like good ownership over there, so you know that they've
Yeah,
got
they got an owner who's going to spend.
right.
Ryan Smith's going to spend some money.
Yeah, so
and they've been rumored in on a lot of stuff. So good on them. I don't know if this puts him on as a playoff team, but it makes them a harder team to compete against.
oh yeah, they're certainly going to make things closer.
The one name I keep thinking about because Nate just got off the board, and we talked about guys who haven't signed yet. Dmitry Orlov is the one guy I keep thinking about.
Yeah,
because
I'm curious what his market is.
Right, because he was underappreciated, I felt, in Washington at times.
Yeah.
Goes to Carolina, has one really good year.
Well, was in Boston too. If you remember, he was part of.
Oh, that's right. He went to Boston at the.
He was part of that. He was with Hathaway.
I don't even count that because I don't remember Boston. Although Garnet Hathaway's a perfect Bruin too.
Well, that was the year when
Washington.
Olmark. Well, that was when Olmark won the Vezina, and they lost like 9 games total, like the regular season. Let me just make sure I got that.
Bob McKenzie. All signs point to defenseman Nick Perbix going to Nashville on a 2-year deal.
Okay. There you go. Another blue line addition. Reunites with Stamkos.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, if I just because I wanted to. While in his final year under contract with the Capitals, this is Orlov. In the 2022-23 season, his 14-year tenure with the Capitals ended as he was traded to Minnesota, and after the Wild retained part of his salary, he was then sent to the league-leading Boston Bruins. Teammate Garnet Hathaway was traded in a separate deal on the same day in exchange for Craig Smith, a 2023 first-round pick, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2024 third-round pick. I thought Hathaway and Orlov were one deal. I forgot those were 2 different deals.
It should have been one big deal. They didn't want to do the paperwork. So, Perbix looks like Nashville on a 2-year deal.
Yep.
As we wait on more stuff coming down. I'm a little, I guess because he'll be cheaper than a guy like Orlov too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to head out in like another couple minutes.
Here's what we'll do. We'll close this out, and I'll do a recap of everything either tonight or tomorrow.
Cool. I mean, we can stick around for another couple minutes, but
we got something. So,
we
Pierre
do.
LeBrun, UFA defenseman Jeff Petrie has signed for the league minimum plus bonuses for 1 year. Florida Panthers.
Wow. Yeah, he's ready. He wants to be.
There's your Nate Schmidt replacement.
That's what I was about to ask, is if he was your Nick.
That would be my thought process.
Yeah. There you go. He's gonna. He wants to face his former team in Edmonton to win his first cup, and in a three-peat for Florida. I said what I said. Right after we get off of this is when the Byram deal is going to happen. Quick, get back on.
Get back on.
I've been back and forth about whether Byram gets traded. I'm starting to think that that's probably happening. Something's going to happen. Either he gets
something's going down with Byram.
Either he's getting offer sheeted or he's getting traded, because I feel like there's too much momentum, now, especially with other guys that we've already mentioned multiple times, like Gavrikov and Provorov off of the list. So
this is not a deal. This is just another cool thing. So every team's doing development camp.
Yeah.
After the draft. At Caps camp today, you know who's on the ice?
Who?
Braden Holtby.
Oh no, but that's he does that.
Okay.
He's been when I covered Capitals rookie camp last year.
He was there. Okay.
He was working with, he and Olaf Kolzig were working with the goalie prospects.
Only the goalie.
Yeah. So so that was cool. One we talk about I wasn't covering the team that long in person as a credentialed writer, but one of the cool things I got to do was after their first game of the season was done, I rode down the elevator with Holtby, and he's just in a suit, and I'm just sitting there like, don't keep looking at him, just I'm like, this is cool. You got
to ask him about the save. You had to ask him about the save.
Yeah.
By the way, on current Saber, Alex Tuck.
Yeah. How do you think? Do you think Tuck is still thinking about that save?
I think Vegas is still thinking about that save because they'd have 2 cups now.
Yeah, I know. Oh man,
they would have 2 cups by now if that puck goes in.
Oh.
All right. This is from Cam Robinson. Brock Besser, full no movement clause, years 1 through 4, no trade protection in years 5 through 7.
Yeah, so he's basically going to be a Canuck.
He's going to be a Canuck for life.
And we'll see how it works.
Oh, Vancouver. Still the most confusing team in hockey.
All right, I think we're probably going to give it. We'll give it like another couple minutes.
Yeah,
and then I'm probably gonna.
All right, and then I will handle everything either tonight or early on tomorrow.
It was I guess one way to wrap it up. I mean, even though that free agency is going to just keep going now, but I guess one way to wrap it up. It was good to be back. It was good to be back doing this. It had been a little while. I had kept tabs on hockey, but I also kind of took a little bit of a break as well.
Well, you root for the Buffalo Sabres, who didn't.
So it's easy to take a break. Even
wait, we got one more here.
Okay.
The Panthers have agreed to terms with goaltender Daniil Tarasov on a 1-year contract.
I think that one was announced right before free agency started. So,
well, the Panthers Twitter account just posted it.
So it's official now.
So he'll back up the Bob.
The Bob. who now that he's got 2 cups, I mean,
Hall of Fame guaranteed.
and
Yes.
And his number retired for Florida.
And you know what? Columbus should retire as number 2 because he made them relevant. Shout out the Blue
He was
Jays.
there. He was there for so long too.
So
see if there, we gotta get one more move before we
one more the bigger. Oh, this is basketball, so that doesn't count. All right. Jakob Poeltl, 4 years, $104 million extension with the Raptors per Shams, covering basketball too.
That's how we ended.
That's how we end on a basketball deal.
It wasn't even a hockey move.
And one more.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm refreshing quickly. All right, Bob McKenzie, this is on the Perbix deal, 2.75 AAV. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know how good he was in Tampa, but you go now to the decor in Nashville. Yossi,
Haig,
Perbix. I know they gave back Ryan McDonough to Tampa. Nashville, they have a type. They really have a type of defenseman they like, and that's those. I don't want to call them small, but they're not big defensemen, but they move the puck really well.
Do we do okay, so Chris Johnston, James Van Riemsdyk's Red Wings contract includes $750,000 in potential bonuses plus the $1 million salary.
Okay, the Red Wings also have gotten older just by the additions of Gibson, Van Riemsdyk out, and they brought back Patrick Kane.
That's the top 2 picks in the 07 draft.
Okay, but you wanted one more. Here's one more.
All right.
Chris Johnston. I'm going to presume this takes them out of something. Cody Ceci signs a 4-year deal with the LA Kings carrying a $4.5 million AAV.
Wow.
I'm going to I wonder if that takes them out on Byram.
It might. That might means that they're eliminated from that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe they were told that we're gonna which means that Byram talks are advancing here.
That's what I'm thinking too.
So. Which also means they also probably weren't the team threatening to offer sheet him. So if they're just planning to just go with CC instead.
I'm kind of wondering though. I would have thought about an Alex Turcotte edition if I was Buffalo. So
I know he was talked about as an idea when he was drafted. Like, hey, we should consider this guy, so I don't know. I guess that's a good way to wrap that up though.
All right.
We were able to get one more. I was afraid we were going to
got the one more in. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. You can watch this again on the YouTube page, which we're live on. You can follow the network, Facebook, Sports Insanity Network, Twitter account, S Insanity Real. You follow both of us, Twitter, Blue Sky. The podcast is also on Twitter. We have to create a Blue Sky account for it. But that's it.
One more bonus signing because we're talking about the Kings and defensemen. Brian Dumoulin signs a 3-year deal with the Kings, carrying a $4 million AAV.
Okay.
Bonus. Not only did we get one more, we got a bonus.
Wait a second. Dumoulin and Ceci both making $4 million feels like a lot.
They very much probably overpaid to get.
They overpaid on both. I don't love that.
Which means that they're definitely not in on Byron.
Yeah, that puts them out.
Which I didn't really know who I had. I mean, I know there were a lot. LaFerriere was talked about and Turcotte. I'm feeling like Calgary is an option.
Calgary's the option.
Anderson's going to be leaving. Byram, the
Three
goal
team,
for Byram to be a one defenseman for them.
3-team trade: Calgary, Vegas, Buffalo.
I don't know how I
Anderson
feel
to
about
Vegas.
I don't know how I feel about Buffalo and Vegas doing business together.
Well, no. I'm just saying you make it work for everybody.
Right, yeah.
Calgary gets Byram. Vegas gets Anderson. You guys get whatever it is you're looking for. My hope would be Zach Whitecloud. So, all right. So, again, follow us on the socials, Twitter, SA and Breakaway for the podcast, S Insanity Real. You watch us here on YouTube.
You can follow me. You can follow me. Blue Sky. What is my Blue Sky again? It's at Nate Moser Sports .bsky.social.
Yeah. Follow me at also Blue Sky, Twitter, Punmaster Rifkin on both. Shout out Patrick Breaks, Joe Knapp, and Top Notch Sports Club as well. Follow them on Facebook. And for Nate Moser, Mike Rifkin, thanks for tuning in to the Free Agency Frenzy edition of the Breakaway Bandits podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood. And hopefully the frenzy continues, and then people will go to friendlies for a frenzy because it's getting hot out.
There you go.
Not a sponsor. There you go, Patch. Not a sponsor. Your favorite line. All right. Everyone.